Hey, what's going on, everyone? Check out what's coming up this week on Legacies.
Holy shit, you're a doctor? Like beyond all recognition, this guy is like, wow, at least one of my students made it. The guy says that.
You know, how big is your vault maneuver? It was this man the other day. Oh, look how big my vault is.
MTV Cribs for
Yeah,
LPs.
like
Is what it was.
MTV vault.
You know, spooning. Yeah, I don't know about that. So single bed
Yeah,
option.
I don't want to talk about last time. I don't want to talk about it.
Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome to Legacies. I'm your host, Tom Ritchie, joined by Wesley the Wizard Bowles. Wes, how you doing?
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning. We got a packed episode today, but first, let's remind everyone that Legacies is powered by Breadstack. Retailers, listen, the results are in. You need to check out Breadstack and all the great work they're doing. It might be time for an upgrade. We got an email from Rael saying I'm honing that intro.
Getting it closer. Yeah.
And I hit him on LinkedIn. I'm like, welcome. You don't know this reference. This is a Seinfeld reference. And it's one where Kramer decided to, there was something going on where you could call in and find where movies were playing. And so he decided, hey, I'm going to do this, not realizing that it's like an IVR type system.
Yeah.
They're using. So he's just reading from the newspaper and people start calling this and it ends up being George. George calls in and Kramer answers. He's like, welcome to Movie Phone. Why don't you tell us what movie, or please press 1 for this movie? And then George is hitting the fucking tones and he's like, why don't you just tell us what movie you're looking to see? It was kind of funny. Anyways, enough about that. Seinfeld people get it. They get it. It's just part of who we are. It's our makeup. If you follow that, I've watched it over and over. Slater and I used to communicate almost exclusively in Seinfeld quotes.
Yeah, I remember that much. Yeah.
Oh man. Anyways, excited about the CannExec Summit. I don't know how I miss weeks. I lose weeks somehow. And then I was looking at the schedule because I know that we had bumped recording to accommodate being able to get to CannExec Summit. And with all these guest bookings and I'm like in my calendar, I'm like, wait, we got another week yet. Oh, hold on. It's next week. Dude, you know that's next week, right?
Yeah, it's getting crazy. Like, I don't know, like this year's been fast as it is, but I don't know where the fuck September went.
Okay,
like,
so it's not just me.
No, September for me is like a blur. Like it's just gone.
Right. So is time accelerating? Tanya brought this up the other day. And I said to her, I go, well, I mean, we're pushing 50. Chances are, as you get older in life, things just seem to accelerate more. She's like, I don't know. And then I started thinking, I'm like, many factors will obviously play into this, right? Which is, you know, how busy are you? Are you sitting around? Are you a lump? And we're far from that.
Yeah,
I don't know,
man. I think it's got a lot to do with everything you got going on. Like, you know, we're picking up here on this side of things. Obviously, things are, you know, it feels like every day we're having a meeting with someone about potentially being on here.
Yeah.
You know, I think we've both got good stuff going on personally now as well. And yeah, I think it's just
well, and staying up on the news, what's going on in the industry. You know, we're there's echoes of what's going on in Canada also being seen in the US, and we're talking to potential US guests as well. Yeah, you're right though. I mean, so September is my birthday month, and typically I'm not saying, oh, it's celebratory, let's go, but I pay a lot of attention. You know, the seasons start to change a little bit, leaves start to fall. I love fall. I love it. I fucking hate winter. But I'm changing my mindset. I'm going to change my mindset. You know, I'm big on this. I'm going to love winter this year. Last year was a bit of a fucky year. Each year I put up an ice rink in the back. I didn't even attempt it last year. It did not get cold enough early enough. We usually have the boards and everything up, or at least it's not a full fucking hockey rink by any means, but 24-inch boards up the sides. And we didn't even get to it. I ended up returning the liner. Yeah. Should have kept it for this year because I asked Ashton, I'm like, do you want it this year? He's like, well, I could bring my friends over. I'm like, dude, you're only playing varsity this year. You're not playing competitive hockey. Like, but okay, whatever. But excited about CannExec Summit. Have you seen the panels? Like, there's going to be some fucking wicked discussions.
Yeah, it looks like
really good ones.
looks like it's so far huge. The number of guest speakers is crazy.
We'll have to we'll figure out. I know I had mentioned maybe we can do some live cut-ins, and you're like, oh, I don't know about Wi-Fi, and that's totally cool. We'll figure out some ways to interview some of the guests and individuals that we'll be speaking there. Should be good content. But I have not. I'm not a procrastinator, you know that, but I am frugal. And I'm like, okay, well, I got to get a hotel room. So I reached out to Darwin. And I'm like, hey, do you have any preferred hotel partners? He's like, yeah, the King Eddie's, whatever, I'll put you in touch. Sold out. They're sold out. Oh, yeah. So thanks a lot, executives, for taking all the rooms. They're not inexpensive rooms. And then I'm like, okay, well, maybe Hotwire. And the thing I fucking hate about Hotwire and some of these booking sites, you have no control over it. You and I are like brothers. We can share a room as long as there's 2 beds, spooning. I don't know about that. So the single bed option.
I don't want to talk about last time. I don't want to talk about
it. That was an interesting time. But, so I'm like, you can't request when you're using these booking sites to have 2 beds in a room. You can say 2 guests. So anyways, and I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, have you ever stayed at a Westin? I love the Westin.
I stayed at the Westin Harbor Castle downtown.
Okay, so
in my 20s or so.
I am back in when I had AdBuzz. We were in Toronto almost every week, some event, something going on, and we set up a partnership with them. And I just got to love it. I knew what to expect. I knew what kind of sleep I was going to get. Those heavenly beds. As I've been going through my mattress crisis, I'm like, fuck, maybe I'll just order a heavenly bed. I know they're good. I always get a great sleep. But it's also the scents in the air when you walk in. They use this white tea or white linen. I think it's white tea, and it's prominent throughout the whole hotel. You know what I'm talking about? If you must know that scent.
Well, I mean, not up here at the Westin. I know what you're talking about from pumping scents in hotels, like when you go to Vegas.
Yeah, well, it's not like that. Though.
It's not like the casino scent, but I know what you're saying. They're pumping a certain
But their signature is this white tea, and it's in their soaps. It's fantastic. So I think I'm just going to bite the bullet. We're going to end up staying at the Westin Harbor Castle probably, and we'll just Uber over. I know what to expect, and I'm a creature of habit. I like routine, and I do not like surprises. I've booked before where I've showed up, walked in, opened the curtains, and it was a fucking brick wall, and I went right back, and I'm like, you either have another room or I'm out. Anyways, I know what's going on. I'm just getting older in particular, but I mean, $400, $500, $600. You could. They're all that price. They're all that price.
Yeah, there's no cheap rooms.
If I'm going to have us spend that much money, then we're gonna just stay at the Westin, because I know what to expect, and so will you, and I won't be going crazy. That's what I need. Water.
Yeah.
But anyways, probably where we'll end up. We got a package, dude. I don't think we've been in person together in a couple weeks, maybe a couple weeks, anyways. But when I see you next week, I've got a box full of stuff. There is so much stuff. Don't get excited. There's not a lot of cannabis product in there, but I'm
still working down what I got. I probably realistically got another 6 months in
holy smokes. Well, listen, our buddy Brad over at Skate Smoke sent over a package as well, and it was full. I've got the hat on display. I'm wearing one of the tees. This is the blunt shirt. Nice gilding quality. This, I don't know is this the Seattle logo, and then he's putting, so on the side it says Smokers Club Championship. But this is all embroidered, super nice. And then on the back, it says Skate Smoke Co. I just love being able to support our own in the community. Like his videos are funny as hell. Check him out. Skate Smoke. I'm sure you can put it up. It's on Instagram. And his site, I mean, super affordable. Like I went in and looked, and I'm like, oh, I like the other tee too, because he sent 2 tees, so he sent a couple for you, and they will fit. There's cones. He's got cones, which thank you, Brad, because fuck, I'm lazy. I mean, if you get me to break up flour to begin with, I want to be able to put it in a cone. So these are cool. And I know these ones. I've seen others that he's gifted with these, and they're of good quality. So anyway, support Brad over at Skate Smoke. Great guy. Had a nice little personal note. I'll add it into yours. So it seems like you're getting it fresh too. But anyways, there's a lot. a lot of stuff. So thank you, Brad. Appreciate that. Um, there was a clip that we had broke out. I don't know if it was last week, and it set some people off. It was Shane, and not in a bad way, in a good way, supportive way. I think it was either about the data or something else. And Omar called me. He first sent me an email, and he's like, "We need to connect again soon." So I'm like, "I'm available anytime." So I was just about to hit into a meeting, and my phone rings, and it's Omar, and I answer, and he is fucking fired up. I mean,
ready to
up,
go on
right?
data
Oh
deals.
yeah, fired up. So anyways, we have this conversation about data and the data fees, and how it's very difficult, especially for LPs of his size, to compete, right? Some of these retail locations, including some indies, they're also now starting to change their tune and charge these data fees. But something that we got into and talked about, and we just hinted on it, and I'm like, holy shit, I don't know why we haven't talked about this. And it's an issue that most won't necessarily know about, and that's repackaging old cannabis. we know about this, right? We used to get data requests. Remember, you put in, if you're going to request a data change, it has to be someone signed off on it, and we would get these data requests change. And I remember the first one, and everyone freaking out about the regs and calling me and going, "Hey, so-and-so LP wants to repackage their product and put a new packaging date." Well, at first we didn't know why, right? It was older product, not super old, but older product. And they wanted to repackage it. And I think at the time they said it was a bad packaging run. There was something wrong with the bags or something like that. And I'm like, okay, well, makes sense. Like, there's nothing in the regulations I'm aware of that prohibit that happening. And then it dawned on me. I put the two and two together with who the LP was and and what product it was. And they were literally just trying to repackage old product, probably an RTV that had come back in, and they wanted to get it back out. I understand the business logic, but I am not okay with the procedure, because you're gonna kill your fucking brand if that product ends up going stale. The cannabinoids degrade, the terps degrade. You're putting out a product that could potentially have had a really good track record, and now a consumer gets this product and it's harsh as fuck, it's dry as hell, and you don't want it. I understand, again, business logic. We need to do this. We need to get the product out. Send that shit off to be fucking extracted or something. Like, and I mean like distilled, put into a disty or an oil or something, like not a resin.
I remember when those first requests started coming in before we had that functionality, and we had that debate internally saying, should we even allow them to do this? Is it our responsibility to say no? It's okay, we'll stick a harvested on and a packaging on date.
Right.
And
some LPs did. That. Yeah. Some LPs were like, okay, I'm good with the harvest date. But the vast majority of LPs, they do not put their harvest date on. I think, does Victoria Cannabis Company put their harvest date on? There's a couple. I've seen a few.
I'm pretty sure they do.
If not, that's cool. But I have seen it on a few packages before where it shows the harvest on date as well. I love you. If you do that and put your harvest on date, thank you. That tells me everything. Well, not everything, but it gets me closer to understanding the product. The packaged on, I love to see, close to purchase packaged on dates. Let's face it, it's not reality for a lot of companies. In some cases, it may sit around, and you've got a couple months in there, right? You're okay. Like it's going to be okay. Yep. And if you're throwing a humidity pack in, I know that there's a lot of pros and cons. Some are saying you shouldn't have to. It's cured properly. You shouldn't have to. They make them for a reason, as far as I'm concerned. If I get product that doesn't have one, I stick a boost or a Bovita pack into it, just because I don't. Like, I'm circulating a bunch, right? So even when I've got a jar of cannabis and I cured it and I was burping it, once I get to the end cured state, I still stuck a Boveda pack into it. That was just me, but I have a feeling this is an issue. I don't know if it's going to be such an issue. We're seeing that bulk unpackaged inventories are starting to decline. However, harvest season is upon us, and I have a feeling that will spike. I'm not sure what all the LPs do with their outdoor harvest. If the flower makes it to a bag, great. We do know that there's inferior product that also makes it to to those bags, and in some cases you've got grassy hay smell, which is not my cup of tea. But yeah, packaged on LPs. If you can put a harvest on date, that tells me you stand behind your product. It really does, and that moves you into another level for me. And I'm sure many would probably agree when it comes to that, but I get it. I'm not chastising those that don't, because I get it. But if you are doing that repackaging because of an RTV, or you just got products sitting in your vault that you need to clear out, I'm not okay with that. That's to me, that's like Coca-Cola just pouring out a can and creating a new bulk lot and putting it into cans again and going, here you go. You're like, something's not right with this product.
No,
can't put my finger on it, but anyways, we got a fucking stacked show today, so I'm going to be conscious of time. Didn't you say something about, who was it? Oh, that fucking guy, Gavin Newsom.
Well, yeah, I think packaged on dates are the least of the industry's or North America's worries for the industry right now. As Mr. Gavin Newsom, governor of California, yesterday decided to put an emergency order in place for what is it here? Immediately stopping all sales of hemp-derived THC products, including food, beverages, and what was the other category here? There's a third one. But anyway, yeah. It looks like the industry trade group, a representative there named Jonathan Miller, said this will eliminate 90 to 95% of hemp retail products, with many, many, many people who use this medicinally losing access to this basically overnight. Shocking. Like, and the quote here from this article, again, I'm reading this one off of MJ Biz Daily, but according to the CDPH, the regulations come in response to increasing health incidents related to intoxicating hemp products, including their marketing to minors. I'm trying to find a little bit more information on these. Unfortunately, the articles I've read on this there's not a ton of focus on the actual what led up to this, so I'm trying to figure that out. And if I find that, I'll put it in the description. But still, this seems like a complete regression. Like,
well, that's just a huge broad stroke move by this guy. And who is it? I mean, California, 95, 96, the medicinal movement for cannabis. But so it's hemp derived THC. That's a synthetic then? Yeah. I don't know enough about that.
No, I don't know. Yeah.
I don't know. So I can't speak to that. But even just from a CBD, right? So hemp, CBD, full spectrum, outdoor grow, whatever, it could be indoor. We know Danny over at Blah does that. I know his products aren't Blah under the hemp side, but I don't like why. It just seems like too easy. It's an easy politician move rather than put some sort of, I don't know, task force. I'm afraid of those too, but do some proper investigation, understand what's actually going on. But there was something that you had mentioned about, the targeting of children, and are they are kids running around going, I got to get me some of that CBD. I can't wait. I don't understand that really at all. And I hope to hell Canada continues to regulate the way it is. If they were to do some sort of broad stroke, fucking throw the baby out with the bathwater maneuver like that. This guy just seems to continue to make less sense. I'll say it that way.
So the extra piece here is it looks like, many CBD products, as you know, are caught under this as a catch-all, right? So it says any products products with any more than 0.3% THC, which, captures a lot of CBD products down there.
Yeah. That's typically where the range sits, is the vast majority of them want to target that percentage of THC and lower. But I mean, how many businesses are going to suffer? Does he give a fuck about the businesses in California? It doesn't seem so. And, obviously we know Elon Musk's stance on that with all of his drastic fucking reform and changes and bills and God, I don't know. It seems very backwards to me. I don't understand why you wouldn't investigate to understand what the true source of the problem is and then regulate based on that. I don't get it.
No. Not sure. But anyway, hopefully things turn around there. But it looks like that ban, unless I'm reading this incorrectly, expires next year. So it has to be up for renewal. But yeah, it looks like it could be a whole year of this.
When's his time up for renewal? I guess that's the question. Is he going to have anyone backing him? I know a lot of larger corporations are like, this guy's fucking out to lunch. Like, and not all have the ability to move on like Elon did, right? Like Elon already set up the infrastructure in Texas to be able to move. That stuff was happening in the process, but it was basically the final straw, I think, for him. And some of these corporations don't have that ability or chance. I would assume that a lot of these Silicon Valley businesses that are there would not be there with Gavin in charge, if they could move, right? I don't know. Maybe they're well taken care of, some of these, but it just seems completely fucking backwards to me.
Yeah, not sure. I'm not sure on that. But,
all right. Well, let's save some time today. I've been waiting for him. Dr. Ira Price is joining us. Good friend. We don't get together as much. He's a great guy, though. His fucking energy. We'll see. I don't know if he worked last night, so coming in, we'll see where his energy level is. But I've been on his podcast years ago, myself and George Dickinson. Max Yield is his license plate and nickname. But Dr. Ira Price, I mean, fuck, talk about a legacy. Pro cannabis medicinal doctor when it comes to that. I don't know if he's still at Hamilton, but ER doctor, coroner, like he just does fucking everything. And one thing in particular that I want to talk about is this Lovely Human Collective project, which is so fucking cool. The meaning to get in and order a shirt, and I get confused every time I go in because he's got one that's kind of oversized, but I'm like, is it oversized no matter what, or like, do I order it? So I'm going to ask him today because I want to support him. I want to support the initiative, and it's just really cool fucking gear. So, and then if that's not enough, we got a doctor and a lawyer on today. Look at us. Look at us.
All grown up.
Yeah, we've got Kirk Tousaw on. As he had stated, Health Canada's original most hated lawyer. And he was very involved with the Conroy v. Allard case that paved the way to our legalization, folks. So we're going to have Kirk on. I love his commentary on a lot of tweets. He's very active over in X, not so much on Instagram, but it'd just be nice to have him on. These are the types of guests that you're going to have to repeat. They have such a legacy. They have done so much for this industry and beyond. But it's one, like, hour and a half. This could be a 4-hour episode by the time we're done. And I know we will not get anywhere near all of their accolades and achievements. But also what their concerns are, future looking statements or forward looking statements of what the fuck can we expect in this industry? Anyways.
Yeah, something tells me I'm going to be doing a lot of this, holding up time cards, being like, let's go. We got to.
Let's see if we can test the technology today. We'll put it to the test. Not that we haven't already, but anyways, looking forward to having Ira on right after this break.
Breadstack e-commerce. It might be time to upgrade.
All right, welcome back, everyone. We're joined by the legend, Dr. Ira Price. Ira, how are you? Lovely.
I'm doing awesome. It's been a while since we've seen each other. The last time, I think you were sitting on the other side.
I was on the other side. And the first thing you asked me, you're like, do you have a swear jar? I'm like, buddy, I'd go fucking broke. I would go broke, which is what I loved about, the initiative, especially your mom saying,
yeah,
you swear too much.
I was going to say, not to be, my mom, who's now passed on, her and her friends used to watch it, or like however old they are. And they'd be like, well, we really like it, but you swear too much. And unless you stop swearing, we can't listen anymore. So I put this, she's like, why do you put a swear jar, Ira? I put a swear jar, and then I just bought weed with it.
Yeah. Well,
not me personally.
Of course not. Well, I did warn Wes. I said, listen, you think my energy gets high? Wait till Ira and I get together because we're going to blow it out. But it's been so long, man. I'm so grateful to be able to connect with you again.
Yeah.
Always loved the connection that we had. I think you have it with many because your energy is just so fucking uplifting. And I personally love it.
We've gone, I think we've been through a lot of the shit together over the last, even not working together per se, but like just coming up through the I don't know, what do you call it? The drudges of the nasty.
It's the valley, and I don't even know if we're fully out of it. And there's been questions that pop up every once in a while, whether it's myself that has a personal question or guests that we have on, and we err into the side of medical a little bit. And I'm like, I got to get Ira on, or maybe I need to get Mike on, or maybe I got to get you both on at some point to answer some of these questions, because I'm not even fucking close to an expert. I have used cannabis medicinally. I hate that word use too. Use
I know.
cannabis, consume cannabis.
I would say expert. Like, what makes some? I mean, maybe like a medical expert, but like I feel like you're a cannabis expert, bro. Come on.
I don't know about. I don't like the word expert. Period. I don't mind. I don't mind handing it out. But personally, maybe that's just the way we're designed. Personally, I just look at it. The same when, you know, the early days master grower.
Right. Yeah. You're such a master grower.
Yeah. Although max yield, shout out to George Dickinson, max yield.
Fair, right? Remember the license plate?
Yeah, it was the best.
Max.
Yeah, yield. It says it on my license plate. I increase yields. My license plate is max yield, and I'm like, fuck off! It is. And we go in the parking lot, and it is.
That's so bad. That's so badass.
And it wasn't like it was a fucking big Ram truck diesel too, and it was like, this is perfect.
Oh, we should have that guy on, man. We should have him on here. Remember, I used to love making fun of that fucking license plate.
Yeah, max yield. Listen, man, you've been up to so much for so long. Yeah. I want to go back, and again, we're going to have you on multiple times, because you know the time that we're going to spend today does not cover the accolades, your career, your legacy by any means. And it goes back, but I first want to understand. I mean, you were chastised as a medical professional for the longest time that you're recommending cannabis. When did that change from prescribing to it's a recommendation? But
it was actually never a prescription. It was always a recommendation, but it is. Where do I even start?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It is akin to a prescription. So for all intents, I don't know. I don't speak English. All intents and purposes.
Intents and purpose. Right. You got me messed up.
Is it intense?
It's intent and purpose.
Intent and purpose. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, it can't be intense. That's a different word. But anyway, whatever it is, intent, that makes sense, because it's intent.
Intent and purpose. Okay.
Yeah. So I never did that well in English, although I have a great English story. You don't want me to sidetrack, right?
Okay. I don't care, man. This is. I just wanted to hang with you. That's the beauty of having your own podcast. You just get to hang with people you want to hang with and shoot the shit.
So I got a great story.
Okay.
Excuse me. So I'm a first-year resident in med school. After med school, you do residency.
Yeah.
And I was doing an elective. I did med school in Hamilton, but at McMaster, and residency at Mac. But I decided to do an elective in Toronto, and I'm working at Sunnybrook.
Okay.
And I don't know if you know, it's probably not that hard to tell, but I wasn't exactly the best fucking student, right? And high school took me a long time. And anybody who wants to talk about it and feels like they have kids or themselves are having issues, took me 7 years to get out of high school. And so, and it did. No word of a lie. So I'm working in an emergency department at Sunnybrook Hospital, and it's like, I don't know, whatever year it is, and it's a late shift. And I'm treating this dude, and he's looking at me, and I'm looking at him, and he's an older guy, and he's looking. He's like, Ira? I'm like, yeah, that's me. I'm Mr. So-and-so. I was your English teacher in grade 11.
Oh, fuck.
And he's like, holy shit, you're a doctor? Like beyond all recognition, this guy is like, wow, at least one of my students made it. The guy says to me. And I was like, sir, I'm sorry. And I'm still calling him sir. I'm like, sir, I'm sorry. Like, I was shit.
Oh my God.
Yeah, anyway, that was funny.
But he must have felt good though for a second. And then he's like, well, hold on. He was my student. Wait, why am I here? Hold on. Can I get another doctor, another physician, please?
I think I was like, yeah, I just want to do a happy dance around the guy.
Cartwheels down the hallway. Yeah. That's awesome.
Hey, everybody go check out my grade 11 teacher for the third time.
Yeah. It's funny. I got another friend that's a doctor, and he goes, you realize I'm not smart. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
I go, well, he goes, I smoked cannabis all through high school, all through university. He goes, it was just my ability to recall information. He's like, I could look at stuff and I could recall it, and I could write the exams, and I managed to get through it. And I'm like, yeah, but I mean, how are we qualifying or quantifying smart here, right? Because the ability to recall information, I mean, you look at Jordan B. Peterson. I mean, this dude can recall fucking information from 3 decades ago.
There are some people that have like that perfect memory recall. So I don't know what my excuse is. Not smart, no recall, shitty ass memory. Like I think I just worked really, really hard.
Yeah.
So when people were like out in the bar, you know, I missed my entire 20s because while everybody was at home or out partying, I was literally like studying forever. So you know what I did? Well, because I missed out all high school and like I was, you know, and I partied throughout high school and did all that.
You got it
when
in
I got
early.
to university,
Yeah,
I did. When I got to university, though, I was like, for every hour of school that I did in university, every hour of class, I studied 2 hours a night.
Oh.
So I took, let's say, 4 courses a day or whatever. I would study for 8 hours a day to teach myself that shit in a room by myself, just trying to blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Like what came to people really easily, because my memory was shit. I had to create like systems of systems of symbols and letters and like and mnemonics and all this shit just to remember shit.
Yeah.
Like just to remember stuff. So like that's how I used like the memory palace. There are techniques because my memory was so poor.
But is that not part of succeeding, period? I mean, you know, there's always this thought, it's motivation versus discipline. And I always say motivation will get you up, but discipline is what's going to make you stay up. And it's going to, you know, it's the same with, I hate working out, but every morning that I can, if my back's not fucked, I'm down there, I'm stretching, a little yoga, a little workout, not like I used to, but it's that dedication to doing it. It's discipline. I have to do it. It's not motivation. Motivation, yeah, rah, 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 but you still have to have the discipline to do it. And it sounds like that's what you had was, I'm going to show up. I'm going to put it in, but you also, you already did your partying.
I did. I spend my time and saying sorry to a lot of people, especially my parents.
Yeah.
At that time, you know, tenacity is a word that comes to my mind. That when I was young, my mother, she drove me to doctor, and this is so off topic, but whatever. It talks about how
what's wrong with my little boy Ira? What's it?
Right? No, literally. Like, well, everybody's like, he's just a fucking bad kid, like, or just he'll never go to school, he'll never make it, blah 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 blah. Like, and that was constant. That was like a constant daily reminder. And I remember in 4th grade, the principal would be like, "You're going nowhere in high school. You won't even make it there."
Dream crushing motherfuckers.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah. But my mother bought me these books that all had to do with like they're all athletes. As an athlete, and one of them was about Maurice Richard, the Rocket. Maurice Richard. He was a hockey player before, like maybe in the 70s, 60s, whatever it was.
I think so.
And it was called Tenacity. It was like and it was like these big books, and it was big letters because I can't read well. It's a wonder I'm a doctor, right? Like I can't read out of the memory. It's crazy. Anyway, so I can't read well. I've got like, this is all part of the disability.
Fuck is that word? Oh my God, I could just imagine going through medical school. Like I can't read them when they're in front of me, let alone recall them.
They still call me. You know what? Still call you doctor.
Yeah.
And so it was about like he was like short, or he had like a stumpy foot or something.
Right.
Anyway, he worked really hard. He became like the fastest skater that there was. That's why they called him the Rocket Richard. And the book was, and this little book was called Tenacity, or the Art of Tenacity, or some shit like that. You know what? That always stuck with me.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it comes down to being really tenacious.
That makes
and
sense.
Really and being it was a lot of stubbornness and tenacity. And
well, I mean, how many times, Ira, were you told, you know, like from the principal's perspective and others going, he's this way, they're never going to be this. Like, I think that's reminiscent of a story of Edison, right? You know, Edison comes home, he's got a note from his teacher, whatever year, God, we go back there, but he's got a note from his teacher, and his mom reads it. And Edison's like, well, what's it say? And it says, so his mom reads it to him and she says, "Oh, your son is so brilliant. We don't have the capacity to teach him here at the school." So he's like, "Wow, you need to homeschool him." So she homeschools him and does all this stuff. Years and years later, after all his successes, all his inventions and everything, he finds this note that was sent home in his mother's belongings after she passed. And it said, "Your son is an idiot, basically. He's never going to learn. He's never going to be able to do these things." So imagine the influence. And this is the bullshit that goes on in life, right? The negativity on the news, the negativity just surrounding us, doom scrolling, whatever it is. That shit affects us. It gets into our subconscious, and people don't realize that. And when you have individuals in authoritative power that speak to you that way, and say, oh, you're never going to become this. So good on your mom. What a blessing that she would, one, get you this book. I'm sure that's not the only one.
No,
I'm sure there's
listen,
many.
She's the one who took me from doctor to doctor. Like that was my
Yeah.
whole life. My whole life, every note I used to get was send him to a different school. I must have gone to 5-6 different high schools.
Yeah.
I that's how I know everybody in the industry.
Listen, dude, I'm not
I
far
went to all their
off.
schools.
Like it was, yeah, exactly. I know you. Yeah. But I dropped out of high school because I was like, I can't, I sit here, I'm like all over the place. I'm fidgeting. It's not that I didn't try. I tried 4 fucking times and I'm all over the place. Eventually, I get my real estate license. I start investing in real estate. I landed a factory job to support that. And I'm like, I need to get my GED. Something's missing. I need to get a GED. So I buy the book, study for the GED in a weekend, right? But it's like fucking 4,000.
Who's going to read a fucking book?
I didn't read it. I read the
no.
first subject is math. And I'm like, oh, you lost me already. So I threw it aside. And I just said, I'm just going to write the test. So I wrote the test and passed with flying colors. I'm like, how the fuck did I do that? I have no idea. Right.
But I do. The way that school is set up isn't conducive for folks like us but the knowledge, the way that they teach the knowledge is and what they teach is not, I mean, it's not for everybody.
Yeah. And I mean, it comes full circle. Like you're teaching now. I know when we were trying to book you, you're like, I've got to support pre-med and med students and they're whatever medical exams coming up. I want to say CSAT. So, that doesn't sound
there was actually there's 2 ways to do immersion. I'll bring this all back to cannabis.
Okay, let's do it.
I'll bring it all the way back.
I don't even care if we do. I'm just so happy to be with you again.
Yeah. Hey, listen, you know what? This may help people more than anything else to know that, people still have the ability to do what they want. They just, and never give up on that shit as long as they're fucking stubborn. Yeah. For me, it was like, I'm right. Tenacious. I'm going to show these motherfuckers that I could do. It's a long time to bear a grudge, like 12 years of university, just to go back to that teacher.
Yeah. Like, look at me now, motherfuckers.
Hey, grade 4 teacher. Yeah. Hey, in the meantime, that guy's a pedophile in fucking jail. So I don't give a shit.
Okay, that's another story. That's the next
totally another story. Anyway, but thankfully, he didn't take any of the bad kids. That was good. Okay, that's totally morbid. But anyway, okay, all right. So what was I saying?
I don't remember.
Okay. Oh yeah, no. So what I was doing is there's 2 ways to do emergency medicine, for example. You can you could do 5 years of residency and become like this extra ultra specialist, which I did.
Okay.
Or you can do family medicine and then do an extra year of studying to become to get like a fellowship in emergency medicine. So I was helping those people study for their exam that was coming up.
Okay.
They were challenging the board exam a couple years after being into practice so that they could write their exam. Anyway, that's what I was doing that day. I'm sorry I wasn't here.
Got it.
Now talking about being tenacious and what happened when I first started working in medical cannabis, it was a nightmare, really. But at the same time, I was, I came out of it when I came out of residency, or when I came out of like, after you do med school, you do residency, that 5 years to train. I was really, it was like 2009, 2010. I was really frustrated at seeing the way that that we treat pain. And it really came down to pain. And it came down to 2 things. It came down to opioids and pain. I was frustrated that there was the beginning, not the beginning. Well, we were in like the early stages of the opioid pandemic. Purdue had put out OxyContin, and OxyContin was changing to Oxy Neo and all this fucking nonsense. And I was super frustrated with seeing patients coming into the emergency departments either like overdosed, seeking drugs, acute withdrawal. Like it was frustrating. And I didn't know what to do about it. At the time, I remember like saying to myself, like, well, this can't be it. We didn't have a good, it was like taking a toolbox and trying to build a house with a fucking screwdriver and to bang in the backside in the nail. That's what I call it. Like, you'll get that nail will go into the wall, but you're going to crack the entire foundation trying to smash it in there like that. That's how we treated pain. Right. And one day I was working at somebody's clinic. Remember Ron Marzell? I don't know if you know Ron Marzell.
That's where I got my original MMAR, I think.
So it was probably from me.
Yeah. Maybe.
Or Cameron. Maybe Cameron's back in
Oh
the day.
no, it was it was Cameron. Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
Cameron and Marzell were doing a thing. It was like a whole thing.
I'm
Anyways,
right though, right? It's Marzell Law.
it
was
was
Marzell? Yeah.
Marzell.
That's where I got my MMAR. Yeah.
So he lives he's in Colombia now.
Okay.
So anyway, I was working at a clinic and I get a call and they're like, "Hey, do you know a psychiatrist?" This is like 2009 because there was like one or two guys doing cannabis before this.
Mm-hmm.
And they all kept getting shut down. And I'm like, a psychiatrist for what? I know a lot of psychiatrists. They're like, oh, because the time we're still calling it, marijuana.
Yeah.
Nobody had gone into the history of the words and, whatever. Mm-hmm. So they're like, well, we got this marijuana thing and it's the MMAR and we got all these people and I'm sorry, what? You say weed? And like, my like little Twinkie. Like, and so for like a decade I was in school and I wasn't listening to weed. I didn't hear I left the culture pretty much.
Yeah.
Right. Growing up, it was, all the high schools I went to were like I had little different groups. One school was me and Abby Roach, Abby.
Yeah. We just talked to her.
So
yeah,
me
she's
and Abby
on too. Yeah.
Yeah, so Abby's awesome, and it was me and Abby, and the other school was me and this and me and that, and then Alex Revich, or like all the guys, like so we're every school I went to had different people, but for a decade I went to medical school, and I had just put my head down. I was finally diagnosed with ADHD and got on medication, and my life changed overnight.
Right.
And so, but I'm like, ooh, poop, my receptors went up. I'm like, weed, I could do this. But I was also an academic. And so I was like, well, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it properly. And they're like, whoa, wait, we don't like proper. We just want you to do like whatever. So I'm like, if we're going to make something viable here, maybe I can do this for all of Canada. Maybe I can create a new area of clinical medicine, because there was researchers. You had guys in Montreal that were researching. You had guys everywhere. Like
McGill was doing a lot at the time too, right?
Back then. Mark was doing all the research, but none of them were in the clinical space.
Right.
And so I had pain clinics, and if I was gonna, do this, I'm gonna write guidelines. I'm gonna start educating. I'm gonna do the research. And I remember someone saying, "What makes you an expert?" And I'm like, "That's great. There are no experts. I'm gonna actually become the expert, because there is no expert in medicine."
Right.
And then everybody started hating me.
Yeah.
I became too medicine for the community. I became too community for medicine. And that's when the investigation started, the college and this and that, because, there was no guideline at the time. So I created the guideline, basically, when the college was investigating me back in like 2010 or 11 or 12 or whatever it was, and they were giving me a hard time. At the end of the day, they asked me, can you write your evaluation of the medical cannabis patient? And that's going to be your that's what we want you to do. And I did that in 2010, and then you see, or 11, and then you see like 6 months later, they have like their policy on the medical cannabis patient. Didn't have my name on it, but it was basically my essay. And then I kept developing, and then I wrote protocols, and I started educating people. And at the time, physicians were giving me a really hard time. I describe it as I was standing in the middle of a highway waving a flag, and both sides of so they could see, and the goal was hit the flag. That's kind of how I felt. So it wasn't a simple time.
What was, man, that's a lot you condensed into a very short amount of time. Certain pieces I want to unpack, but again, it's understanding the medical side of things with very limited knowledge when it comes to this is I understand that toolbox theory, right? Which is, a lot of medical practitioners, especially GPs, they are, their education beyond school is coming from pharmaceutical companies. Use this for this, use this for this. No different than, do you go to construction?
You nailed it. You just nailed it, actually.
That's part of the issue, I think.
Not just part of the issue. That is the issue. When we have to do CMEs. So for example, I got to continue medical education. So I have to do 400 hours of medical education every 4 years. Family docs have to do family docs do like 200. Specialists like myself, we have to do 400 hours. Wow. It's a lot of and it's not hour for hour. Like I can go to a 12-hour course and only get 3 credits for doing it. So they're all weighted differently. But who are the people that mostly put on these these education?
Of course,
it's big pharma, because they can afford to do it.
Right
now, some of us do a lot of it through education. I do mine mostly through like McMaster and teaching and curriculum development or exam writing and all this stuff for residents.
Yeah,
but And back when cannabis first came out, we were doing it for cannabis too.
Well, I was just going
And
to ask. So is that so? If Big Pharma is doing that and sponsoring those events and bringing speakers in, was there any equivalent in the cannabis space? I thought there was, but I
there
could be
was,
wrong.
yeah. I created a journal club
Oh
that
yeah,
was
yeah, I remember that.
accredited.
Yeah,
Remember the journal club?
yeah,
Yeah. So it was like the first accredited journal club, and you can
right.
get 3 hours of credits for showing up. And it was, so that's how we got it. But who sponsors most of these things is Big Pharma.
Yeah.
And now it's, big into cannabis industry does the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Here's the conference, right? You go to a cannabis conference where you get education. Who's sponsoring that? The LP or the
Right.
this
Right.
or the that. So everybody has an agenda.
Yeah.
And it's really hard for physicians. That's where they get their knowledge, right?
Yeah.
Like, here's the latest study. Okay,
Mhm.
who did the study? We did the study.
Right.
So, which is why at the beginning of every lecture or any seminar, I always disclosed my conflicts of interest.
Right.
Not
Well, that makes
everybody
sense.
does it, but
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
you should
Knowing
do
you,
that.
it makes sense that you would do that. And I think that
Yeah.
that's transparency. We need that in every walk of life, right?
Yeah.
Like if we've got a sponsor on the show, I mean, we don't take cannabis sponsors or anything like that, but we're going to tell people
Yeah.
we like it, but yes, they also are a sponsor.
That's right.
And I
Yeah.
think that level of transparency is something that helps build your reputation. Are they still going on? Or because I wanted to ask this about the medical side of cannabis, where we see a decline in recommendations starting to happen, likely due to adult use being very prominent. There's a dispensary on every fucking corner now. But like, are these events, educational seminars still happening in the medical side of cannabis where the LPs are sponsoring or clinics are sponsoring?
There's a decline for many reasons. Obviously, the first one was recreational, but to be honest, even when recreational happened, we saw a surge in medical recommendations or medical prescriptions akin to a medical prescription.
Right.
So we'll just call it. The college will look at it as a prescription, like medicine looks at it as a prescription. Health, the government looks at it as something different. That's just the way it's set up. Health Canada or the government and medicine are two separate entities, and they look at things different. So the prescription actually started going up because you had this elderly population that's like, oh, it's legal now, I want to try it, and they're frustrated with the laundry list of their medicines,
right?
And it's a totally shift. So we saw that initially, but then a lot of us started getting out of it, right? So I sold off my clinics. Well, I didn't really sell them. I basically gave them away. In 2021, I think it was.
Yeah.
And then Mike started slowing down, and all the guys that were really prescribing that had clinics, like large clinics, unless you were a vet, because those guys are forever covered. The prescriptions started to go down,
right,
in Canada.
Okay.
So there are still seminars. It's not they're very far and few and far between, but what I am doing, recently other countries still have, we were pretty far in front of the curve with legalization, and it's crazy that there's other countries that are still dealing with legalization.
That's
but like
crazy.
Germany, for example, their physicians need educating now, and so I'm working with a group that we're going to be doing that. And
that's cool. You're right. They definitely need it. I mean, I still consult with another software company in Europe, and it's so reminiscent the early days. Like they're talking, weird? I'm like, we'll be on. There was one story where I'm with the University of Valencia. They're doing some genome research. They're going to sequence and all this stuff. And they're talking about medical versus adult use in future. And I'm like, and they start referencing Canadian regulations. And I'm like, oh my God, don't go where we went. Please, for the love of God, do not go where we went.
Post-traumatic stress. I'm like, why are we still dealing with this fucking question?
Right. Yeah, and there's so much information out there. I understand they want to bring in experts to be able to help expedite or, at least get their grounding right. But, so as you're going through that, how do you deal with that being chastised? You've got the vast majority of those of your colleagues in the medical profession, they're handing out, and I remember this, Ira, because, I forget when my original back injury was, but when it finally went and I was like, I can't fucking move. That's what, and I do credit, it was Dr. Brockway at the time. I went to the ER, my family doctor wouldn't prescribe anything other than like a Tylenol 3, I think at the time. Went to the ER, couldn't fucking move. And I'm like, you guys need to do something. You need to do something quick because I can't sit, I can't stand, I can't breathe, I can't lay down. And quick shot of Toradol in the ass. And then I forgot.
So you're weak.
I was weak. I'm a weak individual when it came
You're
to that.
weak.
But anyway,
basically
so what
suck.
happened
Just
was
kidding.
I see
I'm
Dr.
kidding.
Brockway, and he's like, okay, well, we got to get you CAT scanned.
Yeah.
We're going to get you on. And I didn't know what the fuck Oxy was at the time. So
Yeah.
Oxy, baclofen, and something else, I think. And I rode that wave for a while. And I honestly just put myself in a coma for the longest time because until I get an MRI and get surgery, I had to go through all that process. You know it all. So
what was your surgery? You had back surgery.
I had a microdiscectomy, L5S1, but then I had recurring issues going on years later. And they're like, oh, sorry, they did the surgery. It was Dr. Duncan at Trillium.
Yeah.
And the weirdest handshake in the world, man. I go to shake his hand and he like pulls back and I'm like, oh, those are his tools.
It's like shaking a dead man's hand.
It was it was cold and super soft though, but like
just like this, like yeah.
And I'm like, okay, well, there is tools. I guess I'm not going to break his tools, and I don't want to do that. But I went through that, and then I had recurring issues years later, and they're like, okay, well, maybe we should do an MRI now. And I'm like, okay, why didn't you do an MRI to begin with? Okay, no problem. And they're like, yeah, you've got another herniated disc that we didn't pick up on. You've got bulging discs. So basically your back's fucked. And I'm like, I refuse to accept that.
So that's the problem with back pain in general, right? So at every level that you have, first of all, back surgeries notoriously fail, right? You have a 33% failure at every level that you have a problem.
Tell me that.
Yeah. So I've got issue with my back too, but and I go to the surgeon, I'm like, oh, but it's just right there. And then he's looking at the MRI. He's like, you got like 5 levels.
Yeah.
If we do it here, you'll fail here, and there. So like 33% fail here. So doing surgery for back pain, because like 50% of the time it makes it better, 50% of the time it makes it worse. It's really hard.
Yeah.
And I understand that back pain's hard. There's a philosopher, not philosopher. So she's a psychotherapist, and I can't remember her name offhand. I wish I could, but it was the one thing that really helped me change my approach to the treatment of back pain or in pain in general in patients when prescribing cannabis. Because my goal was to get patients off of narcotics, which we did a phenomenal job of doing at my clinic. Credit to everybody who worked there. I even did a 1,200 patient survey to study to see how we were doing. It was called Cannabis for Opioid Substitution. And we got literally 85% of the 1,200 patients in the study off of all of their narcotics within a year. 100% of them. Yeah,
that's
100%
wild.
Of the 85% that came off, 100% of them were off altogether.
But there's the evidence there.
Fucking I know, but you can't publish a study like that because nobody wants to publish the survey. It's crazy. We have it all anyway. So there's this one psychotherapist, and I'm sure somebody just reminded me of her name, and I can't remember. And anyway, so she said, her concept is we're going to have pain. It's not a matter of relieving your pain. It's a matter of being able to walk next to your pain.
Right.
So you're going to have pain, but how it affects your life is up to you.
Right.
So you're going to have fucking pain. Like people are like, I got to be out of pain. You'll never be out of pain.
Right.
I'm sorry to tell you this.
You start to wonder though, are other people in pain?
We all are. Right. Once you hit over 40, you're in pain.
Yeah.
And especially if you're athletic when you're young and you never treated your injuries.
Yeah.
So being able to walk next to your pain, learning how to walk with it and live with it as like your partner versus it being something that has to affect your life and being a part of you.
Right.
Instead of it being a part of you, it's next to you.
Yeah.
Right. So that concept really changed my approach.
Man.
Instead of trying to get people out of pain, I try to say, let's not just learn to live with it, but learn to live next to it.
Right. Yeah.
I
love that.
And how can we get to that point? So that concept really changed my approach. Anyway, that's just.
But that's super smart. I love that because and it comes bringing it back to cannabis. Cannabis isn't going to get rid of it. It's not going.
No.
But it certainly helps your ability to cope with it. And I think that's the difference. And I see the individuals that are, I was diagnosed with fibro. I'm like, fuck fibro. I don't know much about it. It's overdiagnosed.
We all say that.
Right? Like, fuck fibro. I don't care about that.
Fibro.
So, but joint pain and I was not good on my body growing up. I don't mean I abused it, but between sports and everything going on, it was, and then I started powerlifting when I was young, and my joints obviously are going to have issues. I'm going to have pain. Now, the ability to descend the stairs in the morning from one day to another, that may change, But the one thing that I do, and I can at least accredit to cannabis, is I'm not going back to the opioids. I may take an ibuprofen once in a while, very seldom, but I am not going back to oxys or any of these very strong opioids, right? But cannabis allows me to cope with that. And I've gotten to the point where, daily use, not so much. Bedtime, different story. But it copes. It gives you the ability to cope.
So for me, so what I do, so you're right. And then, so what I do is I go into what's the physiology of why this is happening?
Right.
What's the evidence behind it? First of all, we have evidence. We have got good evidence now and published. And I was lucky enough and thankful enough to be an author on the study that was done in 2021 published in BMJ.
What's BMJ?
British Medical Journal.
Okay.
In 2021 on cannabis for chronic non-cancer and cancer pain, and there's a guideline and all this stuff, and it's found to be helpful. So like there's no argument anymore that it can be helpful for pain,
right?
We just know it can't. So the underlying mechanism, so what do narcotics do that cause one to why aren't they helpful in the long run, and why is cannabis helpful in the long run, even if both can mediate pain in the short term, let's say. So opioids kill your testosterone. You will be zero testosterone at the end of a chronic opioid use.
Right.
Like your testosterone goes to shit. Your dopamine receptors go to shit. Oxytocin goes to shit. Like all the receptors that are being affected by narcotics play the part of you wanting to withdraw from society, right? We know oxytocin is your happy drug. That's what makes people connected. You need it to feel connected. Dopamine, we know, is a happy drug as well. With a happy drug, you get that dopamine release, right? That helps you with concentration. It helps you with interpersonal relationships. It helps with executive functioning. Testosterone, we know that we need that for libido, for depression. We need that for all of our things as guys. So what does a narcotic do? Over time, it blunts all those things and it kills basically those receptors. And what do? You withdraw from society. You start to become, closed off. You stop talking to friends. You stop interacting with people. And what happens when you stop interacting with people? Well, the number one predictor of suicidality is isolation. So, so over time you become more depressed. You lead to depression, you lead to isolation. Isolation leads to suicidality.
Jeez.
So narcotics basically lead you down that road if you're on them for a prolonged period of time. Don't get me wrong, you post-operative, cannabis is not going to work for you in the post-operative phase. But over a chronic period of time, it definitely will. On the other hand, cannabinoids don't do any of that.
Yeah. So before you go into that part, Ira, I do want to clarify. So when you're talking the receptors, which receptors are opioids targeting? Because it's not the same as your CB1, CB2, right?
No. Dopamine, like a whole bunch of other receptors in your system. Yeah. Like other receptors in your the ones that dopamine respond. Mu1, 2. I'm not going to go into all.
Sure. No. But like it's not, just to be clear for our audience and myself as well. It's not your CBD1. Is it CB1 or CBD1?
No, it's not your It's
CB1.
not your
CB1.
CB1. It's not your endocannabinoids.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's not going to affect the endocannabinoid system.
Yeah. So now the difference with the cannabis and the receptors, because the lock and key mechanism, like let's go through that.
Well, so it's just different. They're all lock and key. You can have a narcotic that literally like binds itself to the opioid receptor and sits there. But the same way that, cannabinoids, we have them in our own body. It's the same stuff that exists in the world, and if you use it naturally, it's basically analogous. It's like the same stuff, same substance, and it binds to different receptors. And those receptors basically do a very similar job to what opioids do.
Right.
They don't do them to the same extent, but they do a similar job. Now, technically, you actually have some cross reactivity where cannabinoids will sit on the same receptors as, or like next to whatever, the same receptors that narcotics do. They just don't stick around.
Okay.
They don't cause the dysfunction.
Yeah.
For the most part. Now, you can have a dysfunction. Anybody can have a dysregulation of any part of their system, right? You can have a dysregulation of the endocannabinoid system, for example. And then you can lead you to, let's say, cannabis hyperemesis syndrome, where you vomit and you cyclically vomit. Shit like that happens. You can't, unfortunately. But for the most part, you're not going to get the same thing, because what cannabis is actually good at doing is decreasing your inhibitions. It doesn't cause you to become it doesn't cause you to become an inward human. It actually allows you to go outwards and talk to people.
Right.
And so that outwardly talking to people, because it preferentially binds to things that make you less inhibited, allows you to become less isolated, therefore allows you to become less likely to kill yourself in the long run, right?
Wow.
So that's the difference between narcotics and cannabinoids when it comes to the treatment of pain. So, for me, I have to understand the underlying mechanism if I'm going to do something. So, and hopefully that's and you could see that translate, right? People that use cannabis are usually happier people, and there's been studies on this. In 1996, there was a postdoc who wrote a very long research study for the Parliament of Canada, and she looked at all of these things. This was Canada's sort of apology for all of their prohibition in the past. That was brutal. So I can't remember her name either. I'm like, all of a sudden the dementia's kicking in. Anyway, she looked at all those things, and cannabis, people that use cannabis are most socially active. Those who use cannabis have higher GPAs. Those who use cannabis are usually less obese,
right?
And like,
so
she looked at all these things.
If the evidence is there, though, where does this whole the stoner mentality, they withdraw, you're gonna find them just playing video games in the corner in their basement in a dark room, and because my experience with it is,
great question,
become more talkative.
I know the end,
right? So where does that come from?
That comes from stigma and the laws that are around prohibition.
Laws. There you go.
So prohibition really caused the way that we see cannabis, and there is an addiction rate. There's like a 4% addiction rate. Like it's very low. And this guy, I remember,
no addiction. I'm like, no. There's a very small percentage of addiction.
See, this guy, I remember, there was a good study that was done in 2002 or 2012, can't remember the exact year, but by a guy named Gable, and Gable, and he plotted on one side all drugs that he put on this plot, all drugs that were their addiction rate and their toxicity rate. So on one side you have like heroin, morphine, all the narcotics, which are like the highest addiction, highest toxicity. And in the middle you have things like alcohol, caffeine, and like other things like whatever, Tylenol. And then on the lower half, over like right here, you have like cannabis, which is on the very low toxicity side. Even below it, you have psychedelics, which is like things like LSD, mushrooms,
psilocybin,
and whatever
stuff.
Psilocybin, which are the lowest toxicity, lowest addiction rates, right? So you see that your narcotics are up here, and this is over here. But you asked a really good question. So then, if that's the case, why do people say, in your head, why are they in their basement using their bong and always in a very ritualistic manner? Actually, addiction to cannabis presents very OCD-like. And the answer is, well, what the stigma around it. Let's look at the laws. Where did people have to use cannabis back in the day? They had to go into their basement. They had to go into these small
back
these
alley,
dark little
in your
dingy
car,
fucking places.
Hide
exactly.
it. You gotta hide.
Right. You had to hide it. So you were so afraid. You were back there with your bong, doing bong rips, or nobody could see, and did it. And so that ritualistically became the addiction.
Wow.
And that's where it came from. Not because cannabis was addictive, which it is. Still, like anything, sitting in a fucking sugar is higher addiction. We like, relatively speaking, we can look at that.
So following up on Tom's question there, Ira, where do we, with all that kind of evidence and knowing all that, where do we need to go to be able to finally be able to put the label of wellness on some of these products and be able to use that
leading to the wellness
because,
now? Yes,
right, because we're not allowed to use that term in a lot of circumstances, and these companies aren't able to market their products as that. But where do we need to be? Is it more on the medical side? Is it more purely bureaucratic? Is it where do we need to go to be able to use that term?
So yes, and all of the yes. It's legality, it's bureaucratic, it's the inability of regulators to recognize the evidence, or choosing not to look at the evidence. I could say the word wellness and they can try to argue with me, right? And they have for years. But as a physician, I could say it's for wellness, and I'm not. So I don't use words like prohibition. I'm not a prohibitionist, right? So people talk about harm reduction. I don't use harm reduction as a word, because then I'm not going to stop you from harm. That's a you choice.
Right.
But I'm going to promote wellness to you. So I call it wellness promotion. And so, and I think that, the nomenclature, like we changed like to the legacy markets versus black markets and all this kind of stuff. Well, I think the nomenclature we use in medicine from harm reduction should be changed to wellness promotion. And once we start changing those kind of terms, and people understand why we're doing it, by the way, lovely humans.
I know.
Why we're doing that, I think that's how the culture ends up changing, right? But there's still resistance even inside our own culture to it, right? Stoner culture still exists, and I go to the legacy markets and I see what's going on. And listen, and it's great. And people were talking forever. Hey, taxation, let's tax it, let's legalize it. Okay, they did that. Now we're not happy,
right?
And nobody's ever going to be happy with. You're never going to find consensus amongst cannabis users,
right?
Just
culture too deep. It goes historically forever, even beyond Canada. And you get into like, you want to go talk to Morocco as they're talking about legalization.
Yeah.
Holy
just
fuck.
Call it wellness. Just start using the word wellness promotion instead of harm reduction.
But I think that,
and then you'll see people starting to change. It's like cannabis.
Yeah.
We started using the word cannabis. Like when I started saying, get rid of the word marijuana, everyone was using marijuana. I'm like, cannabis.
Yeah.
Now it's a mainstay.
It was funny because we were talking to Abby, I think it was this week, and we were just, it's a pre-meet for, she's going to be an upcoming guest. And I said, when I transitioned from the black market legacy to working ample and tech on the legal side, I started to use the word cannabis a lot more, right? Even though I had an MMAR, so marijuana, right? In Jamaica, it's hilarious because it's a ganja license. I love that.
Right.
Fucking love that.
Yeah.
But she set me straight, actually. She said, listen, don't erase, don't whitewash that culture. Moving away from stigma doesn't take changing the names. It doesn't, calling it cannabis versus weed. She's like, and Abby, she's to the point. And I'm like,
Abby's stoner culture. Right. She's right. And listen, she's one of my good friends, and she's stoner culture.
Yeah.
She will straight up be like, I like to get high.
Yeah.
And that's stoner culture. And that's fine. You could call like,
totally.
You want to use it. For me, my goal was different than what her goal was. Right. I needed medical acceptance, and I needed, where it should be for medical purposes. Just happens to be this plant is just phenomenal in all its ways, that it can be used recreationally and it can be used medically.
Right.
And those who use it recreationally are still getting medicinal benefit from it. So, and I'm pro all of the forms of use of cannabis.
All the various forms. But for me,
ways.
I think it was just a matter of, I'm talking to regulators, I'm talking to executives, I'm talking to professors, I'm talking to doctors. If I'm saying weed all the time, they're going to negatively and potentially associate that with, And so I just started using cannabis. And I also want, my kids, age 16 through 21 now, as they're continuing to grow up, they're looking at it as it's a normal part of our culture. It's not something that should be hidden in the corner, taking bong rips in the alley type of situation. Right. So, and I think where, to Wes's point in question was, we see a lot of struggle because there's so many, you've got your flower, you've got your pre-rolls, you've got your vapes, you've got all these, modalities of consumption available to you. But, you've got companies like Imagine Mercer and some of these CBD forward companies, they still have some THC, but they cannot say wellness. They can't say health. They can't do any of, there was that very famous dispensary on Queen Street had wellness on the door. AGCO comes by. They're like, you can't fucking do that.
Yeah.
And so, and I like,
it's a problem.
It is a problem. And so is it regulators actually reading the evidence and going, okay, we can get on side with this study that Ira published.
it has to do with how it's understood in law. It just comes down to law.
Okay.
Really, it's where if as soon as CBD is deregulated, which every year I hear that CBD is being deregulated.
On a fucking rampage about this stuff lately.
Right. So I don't believe anybody's shit, and they all say it's being derailed this or that.
Yeah.
Why this stuff is even illegal in the first place drives me nuts. Like these regulators, I feel like they only allow certain things to, like, you can get 2 or 3 of your drugs
Right.
that you get cigarettes and alcohol. They're going to be
We've
they're going to be
had
legal.
that forever. Why are we going to give you this
Yeah.
too? Oh,
So
now you want
right.
MDMA too?
Right. Yeah. So like, I think it's all super fucking arbitrary is
Yeah.
what it is.
Yeah.
We know that CBD is good for wellness. I mean, it like, that's been shown forever.
Yeah.
There's the evidence on your brain. It's an antioxidant. Like, I mean, there's so much evidence for this stuff that from a regulatory standpoint, it has nothing to do with the evidence. And other than that, I can't answer. You have to talk
I think
to
it's
a
just moving the
regulator
needle, reading it. And I mean, I think it's the Cannabis Health Product Coalition, something in there. They've been fighting against this, Shane Morris and other individuals. And they're basically at the point where what is it they call it, Wes? They need not consultation, another consultation. Every time Health Canada says something about a fucking consultation, it makes me puke. I'm so tired of it. But okay, I want to bring this back. There's something I wanted to ask specifically about. So you talked about opioids. They will lower testosterone. Does cannabis?
No,
it doesn't. Okay.
No.
Why do some doctors say that it does?
I don't know.
Yeah, I knew that would be your answer. I don't know. Okay, now let's go to cannabis consumption. I've used different oils. I maybe vape, whatever, before bedtime. Years of use, right? Helps me sleep. My dreams were way too fucking vivid. No one wants to be in there, and I understand from the PTSD standpoint, especially vets, individuals that have trouble sleeping, how that works. It affects REM though, right? And is that how it actually helps?
Very good question. I was going to say, do we understand?
Well, I want to know, because I'm going to go a little deeper on REM in a second.
All right,
so how does cannabis affect REM, number one? And with what we know about REM, if you're consistently shutting that off, but first I want you to answer that question, is it going to affect your overall ability for your body to heal? Okay.
So you ask a good question. So the idea of, we have to understand THC and we have to understand CBD. We have to understand different cannabinoids.
Okay.
THC. So there's a guy in Florida that did a lot of this research, and unfortunately he's not able to publish it because of legality around cannabis studies and stuff like that in the United States. It's kind of like a fucking mess. Anyway, so as you know, like, most dreaming happens in REM sleep, right? It's not the deepest of sleep, and it does play a key role in memory consolidation. That's what REM, is really known for. THC decreases the amount of REM. Let's say it's 8 minutes of REM sleep that you get. THC will decrease it, let's say, by 2 minutes, and thereby decreasing consolidation of these memories that are shitty for you, decreasing your night terrors, decreasing all the bad shit that usually comes along with REM sleep.
Yeah.
REM sleep, though, is really important, and you need it. So here's where CBD comes into effect. So even though you decrease your REM sleep through one cycle, adding CBD, at least from the studies that he conducted, allows you to have an extra cycle of sleep. So having that extra cycle, you don't decrease your REM sleep overall, you just decrease it per cycle. So you still end up with the same amount of REM, you just end up with it differently. And thereby decreasing your night terrors, because you're not in it as long.
Yeah.
And so you don't have all that time to, go through it, but you still end up overall with the same amount of REM.
Now that's when you've introduced CBD though as well, correct?
Yeah. So usually like a 4-to-1 is great to sleep,
Yeah.
THC will put you to sleep. CBD will keep you asleep.
So 4-to-1 THC to CBD.
Or vice versa. Or vice versa.
Vice versa. Yeah. Okay. So like a Imagine Mercer product, she's got a 4-to-1.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. So but during that REM sleep, is there a repair that's going on in the body? When is that happening?
So it does, because your body's paralyzed in REM sleep, and that's when you have muscle recovery.
Okay.
So it is a give and take, at the same time. You're not a delta, you're not in the deepest of sleep, but you are doing some parts of muscle repair. All of sleep is important. Every cycle of sleep has different parts, better for your brain in different stages of sleep. So I think though the bottom line is everything we do in life is a give and a take, right? You're never going to have something that's perfect. The reason why people like THC and it's good for night terrors is because it decreases in a cycle of sleep the amount of REM that you go through. Will you have potentially, decrease in memory, decrease in maybe muscle repair? It's possible, but I mean, it's a give and take at the same time. Like people are using, different. We use vices for everything. Is it better to do nothing? Absolutely.
Right.
Is it better to not need any medicine, any drug, any supplement, everything naturally? Yeah, of course, but that doesn't work for everybody.
Yeah, I don't think that's life right now.
No.
Especially, and that's the thing that going through, you've got kids.
Kids.
Yeah,
I've got
that's what
kids.
I thought. And, they want to be in sports and, dance and hockey and all this stuff. And you're going, man, this is going to kill you. Anyways, okay, I want to move on to one last thing, at least.
Sure.
Again, we're going to get you on. Tell us about the lovely Human Collective, because I think this is so fucking awesome. And I need to ask a question about the fit of your shirt before I order it. I've been looking at it for months, and I'm like, I don't know if I can pull it off, man. I don't know if I can do it.
No, it's cool. I like wearing oversized.
Tell us why you started it and the success so far, but we want to make sure that we're promoting this. Everyone needs to know.
Yeah. I actually need to find another charity now, because the initial charity that I did it for, I don't think, it's not functioning there anymore.
Oh, okay.
So, it actually started during the vid, and I was pretty vocal about staying connected and policy during COVID, specifically around this fucking isolation and not going outside and wearing masks outside, all the stuff that we knew then and has proven now to be not useful.
Yeah.
And one day I was sitting in the emergency. I was going into an emerge shift, and I was sitting in the parking lot where, of the emerge, just parking. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go online and just make sure everybody's doing well.
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right, guys, just stay connected, stay together, stay positive. Because it was we were in the second, third, fifth, quadrillionth lockdown for whatever.
Yeah.
But we don't even, it just brings me sweats thinking about that. And that's where really Lovely Humans was born, because what we saw during that time was we saw a definitive linear marker between people, and everybody was trying to separate, and you had people that were calling out other people for this, and these people were calling out this for that, and we really saw a divide in not just our country, in the entire world. And you could see who people were. You really got to see, the person that would call on their neighbor and stick them in a gas chamber if they needed to. And to me, that was it was. And I don't think there's a single person that didn't see that.
Right.
Somebody say, "Oh, I didn't see that." No, you saw that.
Yeah, you chose to ignore it. You saw it.
Right.
Yeah.
You saw it. Exactly. And so in my mind, I was like, we need to do something to try to bring people together. And I really liked it. And then October 7th happened, and that really October 7th in Israel happened. And whether you're a human or Jewish, not Jewish, I don't care what you are, any religion in the world, when you see something like that happen at a peace festival, which is what Nova Festival. Actually, my hat says "We will dance again."
Oh, wow. Okay.
You
moved so much, I was unable to read it.
Yeah, it's from Nova. It's from the festival. It says, "We will dance again." And I went to Israel at that time, and I worked as a physician on an ambulance in the north, and actually I worked everywhere, north, south, all of them, but just by the Gaza border. And and we were treating everybody, and people have such weird connotations of what Israel does, but they don't see, if somebody's injured, they don't care who you are. We were treating these terrorists next to their victims,
right.
And it was
they're humans. Yes.
Yeah, they were humans, and you saw that. so I did that for a couple weeks, really in October when it was all just really heated, and I mean, it had never stopped being heated.
Yeah.
But then I came back and I'm like, what can I do? What can I do right now to try to help these people on both, on like the poor Palestinians that are being victimized, the Israelis are being victimized. What can we do in this situation? So I'm like, I'm going to start a fundraiser for displaced children. And so I started, that's how the Lovely Human Collective came out. And so all the funds at the time went to World Central Kitchen.
Okay. Yeah.
Which was an organization that was helping both displaced Palestinian children get food and Israeli children get food and all this stuff.
Yeah.
Eventually came out, all these people are, people may be involved, may not be involved. I have no fucking idea. So
Sure.
I raised about $10,000 in a couple weeks and donated every penny of profit to that. I didn't keep a single penny.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now and so now and then I stopped the fundraiser probably about a couple months ago, whenever.
Okay.
And now I'm looking for another charity so we can do it again. Now there's these it's gross, these dog meat, like dog meat industry in Ghana that these guys are trying to save dogs from.
Okay.
And it's really gross. And so I'm looking into that. I'm just not sure if the current, and I need some fact checking on this guy. There's a guy who's out there really, and all of a sudden in the last 2 weeks he became like super popular.
Okay.
But there's a lot of, and I reached out to him and he says he's out there and he says it's real, but then I go on to Reddit and they're like, this guy's a scammer.
Oh, yeah.
But what he's doing out there is really trying to save these dogs from the dog meat industry, and it's disgusting.
Wow.
And so I really want to do a fundraiser for that group that's out there now trying to save these dogs, because it's really appalling. And I just don't know if it's real. So I'm looking for something like that to run it again, because we should all be walking around with Lovely Human.
I love it.
Like,
I mean,
don't be a dick.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's what I loved, is as much as, we haven't been in person for ages. But your videos were just so uplifting. Again, it's your energy, sharing antidotes and, it's fine, but it was just your energy. It was my way of, hey, I can still see you. I can still, even if we're not talking, I can still see you. And I love the concept of Lovely Humans. I think it makes sense. But as of right now, you can still purchase those monies and
you can
will go to charities. Yeah. I'm just not sure which one yet. But that's, I know it'll be the right one. And everyone will be able to get behind it. But I want to be able to support. So my next question is, because I'm looking at them and I'm going, I like them all, which maybe I'll just get them all. I don't know. But the oversized one, I'm like,
this is the oversized.
I don't know. Like, I'm like, big. What size do I need?
Right.
Do you buy your normal size?
So you buy your normal size, and it's oversized.
All right. I'll try it.
Yeah.
I'm
gonna add stuff.
Those are gym shirts. If I've ever seen them, those are 6 shirts for the gym.
Yeah. I'm going to be adding, like, probably in the next week or two. Wait a week or two, because I'm going to add like a fall collection. Do a full fall collection.
Okay.
I'm going to do a hoodie, maybe a crew, and and obviously the oversized, which is really cool.
All right, spin them up. Let me know. We're going to get it up there so people can look.
Thanks, man.
Individuals, you can support Ira and the Lovely Humans Collective now, but if you want to hold for the fall collection, we can do that. Ira, you're a fucking blast, man. I love you to death.
Thanks, bro.
I mean,
had a blast here.
It's so fun to connect again. We'll have you back on when schedules allow, but even more importantly, we got to see each other in person again soon. Wes is in Burlington.
Are you really?
Wes is in Burlington. Yeah. So we just need to do it.
What? So I'm that podcasting station-y that what I was telling you about, it's at my buddy's house in Burlington.
Okay.
Nice.
So
wait, hold on. Are you still running? You don't have the original, because there was the Synergy Health, that's when you had the clinic.
No, I don't do
one, but you have another podcast now, correct?
No, there's the Higher Estate. I don't do it so often, but I'm like, we're working on getting back into the swing of things. I had a lot of podcasting stuff.
Yeah.
I had all the equipment. So he does his podcast. He does the Art and Science of Tech or something.
Okay.
Something like that. So
well, that's cool.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So his name is Lucas. He does a lot of work. We work together. He does some work. He's a videographer and stuff.
Yeah.
So it's all at his place right now.
Very cool.
And but I don't really get out there so much. Sometimes I go with Lee. You need to get Lee on your Lee Whitley. Lee Helps. Do you know Lee?
Lee
So
Helps. Yeah.
so
Not
he's a good buddy.
we've never met, but
Yeah,
I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
So, yeah, you got to get him on. He's
Yeah.
a fucking hoot. He's a good friend, and
That's
he'll tell you what he's doing. He's helping thousands of people and just giving away his cannabis to like cancer patients.
Nice.
Anyway, yeah,
Nice.
even helping himself. But anyway, so
Wow.
we do some podcasts together. You know, there's nothing really set in stone.
Yeah.
I'm not as active as I was in the podcasting space.
Well, you have
a
couple things going on.
Yeah, just a few.
Especially, I don't know why you've got an examination, some sort of chair behind you.
I do, yeah.
You got a patient coming in for a quick hysterectomy or something going on.
Exactly.
Jeez, we'll see you at my home. No problem. No, totally legit. Totally legit. What's this gas you're giving me, Doc? Anyways, all right. Well, I don't have a swear jar, but I'm going to pay it back by supporting lovely humans. I know I drop a lot of F-bombs, and I think our audience is okay with it. But listen, bro, I love you. I love that you were able to join us. Thank you so much. Much success, and continue the work. It's awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks for being on Legacies, Ira.
Thanks for having me.
Breadstack e-commerce. It might be time to upgrade.
All right, welcome back, everyone. We're joined by Mr. Kirk Tousaw. Kirk, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Of course, we're gonna have you on. Fuck the history, brother.
That means I'm old, man. I'm not too sure about all this.
Or well accomplished.
Old guys.
Yeah. I think we put something. We had Harrison Jordan on, who we said something about Canada's most hated lawyer. Maybe currently, and you're like, yeah, how about me? I'm like, oh yeah, and how about Conroy as well? Yeah. Anyways, we're glad you're here. It took some time, but it seems like it was forever ago that we met to discuss getting you on, but here we are.
And I'm looking forward to it. I don't know if I'm hated. I like to think that I'm an amicable fellow that nevertheless takes firm positions when I believe the government is wrong about something.
Yeah, there you go. We'll correct that.
And they're often wrong, unfortunately, about drug policy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you've seen it from both sides, right? So originally, did you practice law in the U.S. or did you go to school in law in the U.S. first and then?
I did. I went to Michigan State University and then Wayne State University School of Law. And then I was in a large sort of belt and suspenders civil litigation practice in Detroit, Michigan for 4 years.
Okay.
Before coming to Canada in 2002.
Yeah. And you went straight to BC?
Yeah, straight to Vancouver. My wife and I and our daughter, we only had one at the time. We're sort of looking to escape the U.S. in the, post 9/11 wave of nationalism and warmongering that sort of swept the country back then. I'm a Canadian citizen, dual citizen, born in the States to Canadian parents. And so, I'd grown up always going to Montreal. That's where my mom's side of the family is. Yeah. And so I said, well, look, I applied to McGill to get a master's in law. I applied to UBC because we'd sort of always thought about living on the West Coast. Got into both, decided the Montreal winters were not for us. And so we moved to Vancouver sight unseen, had never been there, made the decision to move there. And have never really regretted that. Fantastic.
That's a lot to say, though, man, considering you're in Detroit and, the winters there are not the most forgiving by any means.
They're not, but I mean, there's something about a Montreal winter that'll set you back.
Especially when you get into old Montreal, you get down there in the crisp winter nights, like the wind just eats you to the bone.
It does. I mean, one of the greatest cities in Canada. Let's not miss that. It's a phenomenal place.
Yeah, for sure.
But we certainly loved living in Vancouver for the time that we did. It was great for our family. And, it turned out I wrote my master's in law on the issue of cannabis prohibition and the Clay Cane and Mama Levine cases that were in the Supreme Court of Canada at the time. And the Senate report had just come out, and it was a really sort of momentous time for studying drug policy, cannabis policy. Ended up actually representing all three of those litigants over the course of my career, Malmo and Randy Kane, rest in peace, great guy. And Chris Clay and I are friends to this day. He's got a couple shops here on the island.
Oh, cool.
Doing great. So it's
awesome.
It was a heck of a decision, I think. And
Yeah.
And we loved it. We loved Vancouver. We loved British Columbia.
Well, and I mean, so at that time, thank you for coming back to Canada, number one, because I think that, the support and especially when it comes to civil liberties and fighting for our civil liberties.
Yeah.
Thank you. I mean,
Well,
I couldn't imagine where the fuck we would be. Like, and I realize it's a team.
Somebody else would have been there. Somebody else would have been there.
Sure. But you were very active in it. And obviously, so what year was that? I mean, you were writing that, what year?
Yeah, 2002 to 2004. I was at UBC, writing the master's in law, also doing a bit of teaching assistant. I was in the union there that we went on strike. We got legislated back to work by the BC Liberals.
Yeah.
98-2 was the vote because they dominated the legislature at the time. And that, that sort of, I think, added to my already existing support for, unions and left-wing causes. But I graduated with that master's in law, went to work for the Civil Liberties Association, the BCCLA. I had a couple profs at UBC that sort of nudged me in that direction and became their policy director. And through that work, got to know Philippe Lucas and started doing drug policy activism pretty heavily. I'd written that thesis and had a pretty good grounding in the issues around cannabis policy in Canada, charter issues in particular, civil liberties issues, human rights issues. Met John Conroy. And, John, of course, just a wonderful person, first and foremost, but an incredible lawyer. Really sort of took me under his wing, gave me an opportunity to do a bunch of good work on medical cannabis access.
And then, so obviously the infamous case, Conroy versus Allard,
Allard versus Canada.
Allard, So, I mean, we followed that like so close. How long was that case?
Well, that's fast forwarding quite a bit from 2005 to when we initiated that litigation, and it had to be around 2012. The case itself, I think, only lasted about 2 years.
Okay.
I mean, John was able to secure the injunction that preserved on an interim basis the rights of medical patients to grow for themselves when the Harper government was busy taking away those rights and really cracking down on cannabis and the cannabis community by implementing mandatory minimum sentences for growing as few as 6 plants. By the way, folks, there's an election coming up in about a year here in Canada, and the Conservatives are looking to form government again. And I'm old enough to remember with the last time they formed government, they were not friends to cannabis policy, not friends to the cannabis community. Let's please remember that. We'll put that aside.
Yeah, we'll definitely come back to that because
we can return to that.
Yeah, exactly.
But John got that injunction, and then we litigated the case. Obviously, we won that case, and I think probably forever enshrine the right of medical patients to grow for themselves. I don't think the government. I think they'd like to, but I don't think they're going to be able to take it away from people ever again. Thank goodness, because at the end of the day, if you can't grow your own medicine for yourself, you don't live in a free country.
No, exactly. And that's where it started for me as well. I mean, it was much past that, but the MMAR program, right, when that was rolling out, we had Ira on, and it turns out that, so he was working with the law firm at the time that I had to go through, because that was the way you did it, right? It was, okay, you got a book with the law firm, and then there's going to be a doctor. And I'm like, what the fuck kind of process is this? Right. But I mean, it worked, right? There was something, at least there was a framework and some guidance, and we got through it.
But anyway, it did. And it did give I think the other thing it did is it sort of cleared the ground for people to be able to understand that people can grow cannabis safely without threat to themselves or their neighbors, without the worry of people stealing it or getting into it. And it normalized growing cannabis in some respects, which then, because of a series of court decisions in between, say, 2005 and 2012, around sentencing for medical cannabis cases, including one I litigated with my now business partner, Matt Barron from Great Gardner Farms and House of the Great Gardner, showed that you could both do it safely, but then also the compassion clubs started really coming to the forefront. They had obviously predated, a number of them had predated my arrival in Canada in 2002 and my beginnings of activist work in 2004. But that Barron case where he had a license to grow 11 plants, was growing 1,100 plants, all for the Compassion Club, the Vancouver Island Compassion Society, founded by Philippe Lucas, really showed that you could do this in an organized way. You could do this in a safe way, in a transparent way. And the courts would, I don't want to say bless it, but when presented with the right facts and the right law, would certainly come down on the side of patients almost every time. And they have consistently done so, really, ever since some of the first decisions in the mid-1990s. So it's been a real learning experience, I think, with both growing and then storefront distribution. Of course, the early storefront distributors, Ted Smith and the Victoria Cannabis Buyers Club, Philippe and the Vicks, Calm in Toronto, Hillary, Bubble Man and others at the BCCCS in Vancouver. They were the progenitors of a movement that exploded in and around the mid-2010s, where we saw the dispensary boom. And then all of a sudden, you've got hundreds, maybe thousands of illegal dispensaries across Canada demonstrating that you could distribute cannabis at a retail level without any real disruptions, without any real crime, without any real problem. And that process of normalization, I think, helped pave the way for ultimately Justin Trudeau and the Liberals deciding to go ahead with recreational cannabis legalization. So it's really all tied together when you think about the arc of the history of drug reform in this particular situation.
Yeah. And I mean, that's the thing. We like to subsection it and pay attention to one thing. I do it myself from time to time, right? I'm like this, and I get hard on it. And then I'm like, hold on, I got to fucking draw back again. I've got to get my senses and my bearings again. Right. And I've done that. But I remember the early days Compassion Clubs, and especially when the MMAR allowed for designated grows as well, and to be able to supply, other patients with their medicine. But I'm curious so there was a point in time during the proceedings where I can't remember if it was the MMPR to the ACMPR, where basically the federal government said, look, you're taking too long, get your shit in order and get this and which partly I think formed why we saw such a quick or swift movement to the Cannabis Act or the ACMPR at the time. What was going on there in the courts? It seemed like the courts were very much in favor of the medical side, but am I completely wrong or
No, you're exactly right, Tom. And really, I still use this in some briefs even to this day on medical cannabis related issues, but I called it a litany of litigation. And it really dates back to the mid 1990s with some cases brought by patients seeking just access to cannabis legally. Jim Wakeford winning a case that basically said to the Minister of Health, hey, look, there's this process under the Controlled Drugs and Substances Act, Section 56 at the time. You should be granting people access to medical cannabis lawfully for their own use. And then, of course, Terry Parker wins the seminal decision in the early 2000s, 2001 in the Ontario Trial Court and then the Ontario Court of Appeal, where the government basically, where the courts say to the government, look, it's this democratic dialogue, right, between the courts and the legislature on the issue of the charter and the protections that people have. Look, you need to have a viable system of medical access, or you can't have cannabis prohibition. Right. You sort of have to choose. It's one or the other. Yeah. And then from essentially then and the first MMAR being drafted and implemented all the way through and including legalization in 2018, it was really a back and forth between patients, patient advocates, compassion clubs, fighting for increased access, winning repeatedly in the courts, and the government taking the smallest possible step that it could take and still be able to go into court and say, well, we have a new system, so your decision on the old system isn't necessarily effective, and we get to keep prohibition. And we did that, for 15 years, or at least I was part of that for 15 years. We won in Barron. And that was an issue of, as you said, right, the designated producers. Originally, you could grow for one patient. And the court found that unconstitutional in the Barron case. and in the Hitzig case in Ontario. And what happened? The government changed it to you can grow for 2 people. Right?
Yeah.
You used to be able to have, well, I can't remember if it was 2 or 3, but it was a small number of designated or personal producers in one location.
Yeah.
That was unconstitutional. Government moved the goalpost just very slightly, came back to court. Literally, I was in court on an argument about this, one designated producer switches to 2. And the Crown, with a straight face, said to the judge, well, that's 100% increase. They doubled the amount of access. And for people that understand how these things work, it's laughable and tragic.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is a lot of, every time you go into court, you have to educate the judge about how these things are actually working on the ground.
Right.
And it's 1 to 2 is not an increase.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And, Matt, when he was arrested, was growing for 400 patients.
Right.
Himself.
Yeah.
And that's really, just to make my pitch here, that's the sort of social club model that the VIX, that the VCBC, that these organizations have always sort of aimed towards. It's what's still the case for medical cannabis in California and a bunch of U.S. jurisdictions. It's what Germany chose as their recreational cannabis model. It's an effective model where people that want to grow cannabis provide it to an organization which helps distribute it to the members of that organization. That's how we should be doing medical cannabis today.
Right.
This whole continued ACMPR to grow, one person can grow for 2 people, or you can grow for yourself, or you can, go to these online sites that'll sign you up in 5 minutes online with a doctor visit. But then you're just buying the same recreational
weed
products with the same restrictions on dosage, in particular for edibles. It's not what patients want. It's not what patients need. And so we need to be it's the forgotten aspect of cannabis policy, I think. We need to be continued to focus on how do we improve access for medical patients. And it doesn't mean telling them to go to the same store where the bud tender is trying to sell you products for your recreational use. That's not the model that we should be aiming towards. So,
well, there's a lot of complications under that as well, right? Like we could peel that.
Well,
we could peel that onion back all day long.
You can't talk about effects.
Oh my God!
I need something for my arthritis. Well, I wish I could tell you that this works for your arthritis. But
you're in the wrong store, buddy. Go down to Shoppers.
It's terrible. It's terrible.
Well, this is funny.
So that back and forth went on for 15 years, right? With Allard, where they try to take the rights to grow for yourself, and they say, "Oh no, we've got this commercial system in place. It works great." It doesn't work at all.
Right.
Or with edibles, where you literally were only legally allowed to smoke cannabis.
Right.
As a medical patient.
Health
only.
Canada. We're only
they've got a 50-page book on the medical benefits of cannabis that they publish, which we put in the Smith case.
Okay.
And it basically says, don't smoke.
Yeah.
And you sort of got a judge sitting there going, well, you're telling people not to smoke cannabis, but you're also telling people that they can only smoke cannabis, or I suppose eat the raw bud.
Yeah.
Right. Because it was the
I remember
it was taking it away from
that.
being dried cannabis that was unlawful.
Yeah.
And
I feel like that's a missed opportunity not to have Nug cereal. I'm just saying.
I think you're right. I think you're right.
We were talking to someone this week, and they're bringing a product. It may exist already. It's freeze dried, consumable that way, and I'm like, what? So they're processing. You know enough about this, but for our audience, you're taking fresh frozen and being able to create an extract out of it, or doing whatever you're going to do. But this is coming to market like. Is it freeze dried? It's something along those and I'm like, what?
Yeah, we had that conversation yesterday with someone, but I'm not sure we're allowed to actually talk about it.
No, we won't say anything about it, but I'm like, okay, that's interesting. But anyways,
good luck for that.
But I specifically remember that, Kirk, where it was because the argument came out, and that was almost headline. There was something going on. I forget where it was, and it was basically the recommendation to smoke or only smoke, but then counterintuitive is, but don't smoke. It was like,
don't smoke.
so basically
Don't
you get
smoke.
nothing from us. You're getting nothing. But I
Smoking is
specifically,
bad, but
smoking
here's
is
some
bad.
weed to smoke
Yeah.
for your health.
Oh my God.
So and look, let's be real. That smoking cannabis does not have a tremendous amount of negative health consequences. The research is out there. Take a look at it.
Yeah.
But the sort of stupidity of it all, I think crystallized for the court at least. If you watch legal stuff on TV, there's a lot of what I call Perry Mason moments, right?
Yeah.
They're like, "Hey, the guy admitted on the stand he's the killer."
Yeah.
That doesn't happen.
Yeah. Right. To you.
Law is a slog. It's a grind.
Yeah.
It's parsing little details, but I've had a couple of Perry Mason moments in my career, and one of them came in the Smith trial.
Okay.
Where we were litigating on behalf of Owen Smith, who was a maker of edible products for Ted Smith's club, no relation, the Victoria Cannabis Buyers Club, now the Cannabis Buyers Club Canada. Still operating, by the way, in Victoria, BC.
And didn't they just receive some astronomical, ridiculous fucking fine of
$3 million fine?
$3 million fine for helping sick people.
Fuck off. This shit.
We're fighting it. It. But
anyway, so the Perry Mason moment.
It's before the CSU. So we're in the courtroom, and we've got a woman patient, very brave woman on the stand. Hard to do this, by the way, to take the stand in a courtroom. Everyone's wearing their robes and penguin suits, and judge up there, on the dais looking down. And these are not easy things to do, particularly when your health is compromised. So my salute to all the patients out there that have been willing to put themselves out to help the cause advance. But she's on the stand, and the way she liked to consume her cannabis is she would take she had a license to grow it and possess it. And she would grind it up, and she'd put it in a little tea strainer, and she'd put it in the tea and swirl it around with some milk, and then she would drink the tea. It's kind of a mild oral extraction, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So the judge interrupts the Crown's cross-examination of this witness, and he's sort of trying to poke at her, well, you could just smoke it or whatever, this and that. And the Crown says, look, Mr. Eccles, that was the Crown prosecutor. Mr. Eccles, I just want to make sure I understand the Crown's position here. You're saying that Miss Herman, you're saying that she can grow the plant legally. She has a license from the government. Oh, yes, that's right. And you're saying she can grind it up, no problem, put it in a little tea strainer. And you're saying that she can put the tea strainer in her tea and swirl it around. And that's fine because it's still dried cannabis with the now wet, but formerly dried cannabis in the tea. And Mr. Eccles says, yes, that is correct. But the Crown's position is the moment she takes the dried cannabis out, or takes her tea strainer out and puts it off to the side, what's in the cup now is an extract, right? Because the THC has been extracted into the milk and the tea. So this is now an extract. And so now the tea is illegal, and she's not allowed to possess it or consume it. And Mr. Eccles, to his credit, says, yes, your lordship, that is the Crown's position. That's the interpretation that Health Canada has on these restrictions. And the judge went like this.
Oh my God.
And you won't see it. You won't see it because I'm not going to turn my back to you. But I went like this, put it behind my back. And I knew we won the case.
Oh my God.
I knew we won the case in that moment. I almost teared up. I'm tearing up now thinking about it.
Wow.
Because you don't get that a lot. Because right, we're arguing that it's arbitrary.
Right.
The test under Section 7 is this arbitrary? And she's a criminal the minute the tea strainer comes out of the tea. And is there anything more arbitrary than that?
Wow.
So it's just the stupidity of the whole thing.
Yeah.
Boggles the mind, right?
I think
so now we're in a position where medical patients are still restricted to the same 10 milligrams per package, buying on the rec market for edibles or making it themselves, which, by the way, if you don't know what you're doing, that's the worst possible idea.
Yeah, don't do that.
Don't do that.
Don't accept from friends. Don't do that.
I've made my own cannabis brownies, and I've had some interesting experiences.
I've had some real green out experiences where it's like, I'll never touch cannabis again.
I remember sitting at my dad's kitchen table, like 16 years old, just drinking water and telling myself, It'll go away.
Yes,
It'll go
die.
away.
Yeah.
It's
You're not
just the
gonna
drugs
die.
will wear off and
Yeah.
you'll be fine.
At least you were smart
You know?
enough at that and had enough, space in your head to do that. Most of the time, even at this age, if I'm really greened out, it's like, no one's ever died from cannabis. No one's ever died.
Yeah.
Like, hold on,
Right.
I'm gonna be fine. Do I have any CBD? What's going right?
The black pepper's the other one.
Oh yeah,
A healthy dose of black pepper will
Really?
amazingly
that'll set
sort
you
of
straight.
displace the THC and set you straight.
Jeez.
It really will help.
Interesting. But I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
and that's part of the, I remember the Derek Pedro case where he had to go in and prove why he needed so many gram allotments. And
Yeah.
I think the part that really just kind of burns my ass is the fact that we have to be here and taxpayer dollars have to get spent on nonsense in some cases. And I get we need
Millions
it.
of dollars.
We need it to happen. We need to go through legal process. But at the same time, when you're looking at these things, that what you just explained to me, I'm going, are you fucking kidding me? Which is probably why the judge face in hands going, what the hell? Like seriously.
He was an older conservative guy.
Yeah.
I feel like, he didn't necessarily want to give us the win,
Right.
But there's judges in Canada, at least I've found, tend to actually do their job without much bias.
Right.
They analyze the facts, they apply the law as the courts have laid it down, and you tend to get decisions. You may not agree with them, you may appeal them, you may win an appeal.
Yeah.
But I think in that moment he knew this doesn't make any sense,
Yeah.
and
Well,
these guys are going to win this.
Yeah. Logic prevails in
challenge,
certain cases, right? And I think that's what he probably came to. And you're right. I've seen this reading through various court cases across any industry, is that it does seem like our Canadian judicial system, or at least the judges that preside over, they have a little bit more balance. Because you look at some of the shit going on in the U.S. and I mean, you're a U.S. citizen too. And I'm like,
just respect for the dignity of the office. I mean, we had a Supreme Court of Canada justice resign because he got into a bit of a allegedly drunken fracas at a conference in Arizona or something, and he resigned. Resigned his seat because it was too much.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, apparently you can give, tens of millions of dollars in luxury vacations to justices on the Supreme Court of the United States, and they'll rule in cases that you're involved in.
Yeah.
Looking at you, Mr. Scalitas.
Yeah.
I mean, Clarence Thomas, it's a mess, right? It destroys people's belief in the integrity of the judicial system.
Yes,
and,
exactly.
And frankly, that's part of the far right project. Like, it's important to destroy people's belief in anything. The belief in that government can solve problems and be effective and bring together people for collective action. The belief that the judicial system is fair, that the rule of law matters. You have to destroy those things in order for your unpopular policies and your creeping authoritarianism to come into play. So, it's part of a long-term project that is unfortunately being successful down there and not, I think, so much here yet.
Interesting. Wes, what were you? Go ahead.
Speaking of this, the states and stuff, I'm not sure if you've seen today with what's happening in California with Gavin Newsom, basically stripping away the hemp stuff. I was wondering if you could get your thoughts on that, and because that seems like a huge step backwards, obviously.
It is, and Gavin Newsom hailed as this sort of, great stand-in for the allegedly progressive wing of the Democratic Party. Surprisingly regressive policies in a number of areas around, social disorder and now hemp. It looks like some companies there are not going to stand for it. Immediately in federal court, filing suit against this. That's, I think, important. I wish more people in our industry here in Canada, particularly licensed cultivators and processors, did that kind of thing. That's, we had a tweet going there with Dr. Morris, an organogram, challenging the ruling in Health Canada, I think, on the Jolts product in federal court. Absolute kudos to them for doing that. It is not uncommon in industry to do that. If you go to the federal court's website or CanLE, search up Eli Lilly. Eli Lilly, a major pharmaceutical company, regulated by the federal government, regulated by Health Canada, gets told product X can't be sold in Y manner, or product X isn't scheduled this way. They don't just take it. They go to court and they fight it if they think the government is wrong. And sometimes they win. And our industry needs to stop being scared of its own shadow.
Yeah.
Get into court and fight these battles when the government is wrong. And I can tell you they're wrong in a whole bunch of areas. I've, on behalf of my company, Great Gardner Farms, have challenged a number of letters that we've gotten from the regulator saying, this is non-compliant or this activity is not permitted. And you know what? If I think they're wrong, no, we're going to keep doing what we think we're allowed to do under the rules. And even if we're not allowed to do it necessarily by the rules, sometimes the rules are unconstitutional. So, for example, in my opinion, just about the entire marketing and promotional restriction scheme is completely unconstitutional, violates the Charter of Rights and Freedoms protections on commercial speech. That needs to be litigated.
Yeah.
An industry that cared about its ability to thrive in the long term would be in court right now challenging some of this nonsense because it is an absolute anchor on our ability to succeed and prosper.
Yeah.
And no other industry would take it. None. And we shouldn't take it either.
You're going there already, and that's okay. Because obviously this is an area that's very close to home for us, right? We've set up and built as many mediums as possible in order to help promote. But I mean, going back, I had to sleep with the regs, right? We were in compliance for the longest time, and I'm not an expert by any means, but if you mention something, chances are I can recall some information, not to your ability when it comes to it. But
don't test my memory. I've been smoking weed every
you
day.
did mention
since
Can Lee. You are one of the very few that have ever brought that site up. So I came across that site in my early days with Ample because we're always in the regs, and I'm like, guys, okay, listen. You're not going to be able to decipher all this. They make it so it's a fucking crossword hunt or a puzzle hunt. Here's a website, type in what you want, pull these up, and it'll give you specific references with backlinks to what it's referring to within the act. Use it. Anyone that's not aware, check it out. We'll put it up. Wes, make sure that we put that up.
CannExec. It's free legal research.
Is so good. I fucking love that site. Okay, so marketing regulations. You go through your applications to apply to become an LP, even bringing a product to market. You want distribution. Some of the questions are, how are you going to market your product? And you have to have a marketing plan of some sort. And I don't even think if I can look at it, but regardless, it's right there within your application process, right? Whether it's you're trying to gain distribution or get an LP, how will you market? Well, why don't you tell us, Health Canada? Why don't you tell us how we'll market? Because clearly we can't do anything, right?
So you can't do much, that's for sure. So it's particularly not business to consumer, right?
Right.
Business to business, you have a bit more leeway if it's in a controlled environment, et cetera, et cetera. And look, people are flaunting this all over the place every single day. There's a ton of non-compliant products out there from a lifestyle branding perspective.
Yeah.
There's a ton of non-compliant products out there that are quote unquote attractive to youth. It seems completely arbitrary who gets picked for enforcement or, the nasty gram letters from Health Canada saying, hey, we think you're not in compliance.
Right.
But it's just absurd because look, here's the test, right? I'll give you a chapter and verse on the law just real quick. Hopefully we don't bore or lose anybody. The seminal case in this area is RJR Tobacco, the big tobacco companies, right? 20 years or so back, Health Canada imposed a bunch of marketing restrictions on the tobacco industry. Before that, they were, pretty widely marketed.
They were everywhere. Marlboro Man.
They were everywhere. and RJR says, well, no, fuck you.
Yeah.
We make billions of dollars. We're going to fight.
Right.
And they fought all the way to the Supreme Court of Canada. Now, they won on Section 2.
Okay.
The court said, look, these are restrictions on the commercial free speech rights of the tobacco companies. They just absolutely are. So we win that for cannabis as well. It's an automatic. I don't even think you need to litigate it.
Right.
So then in charter law, what happens is if they're restricting your rights, they can essentially override that restriction under Section 1 of the charter if they meet what's called the Oakes test. And there's a variety of things that the government has to show, but basically they have to show that the restrictions are demonstrably justified in a free and democratic society, and they're the least intrusive means to achieve the important government objective. Well, in the tobacco's case, it was tough litigation, but the government was able to show, look, these are deadly products. They are literally killing people.
Right.
And the marketing is intrinsically tied to increased usage.
Mm-hmm.
And the warnings are, and the restrictions are, in fact, the least intrusive means to combat this exceedingly deadly product that kills
Right.
lots of people and sickens hundreds of thousands more.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's have that fight about cannabis, because I would suggest that cannabis is not a deadly product, and in fact, there's a medical aspect to it that means it's health enhancing for a lot of people.
Yep.
But even for the casual recreational consumer, they are unlikely to suffer virtually any health negative consequences from the use of cannabis in their lifetime. There's a few minor ones. If you're chronic, maybe.
Sure.
Right. That's sort of it.
Yep. Yep.
Okay. So not deadly. Is this an important state objective? Maybe. But is this the least intrusive means to affect that? Well, we know, for example, alcohol, not quite as deadly as cigarettes, but still pretty deadly.
Yeah, it's pretty damn deadly.
Causes a great deal of social havoc. The government's made a decision in alcohol on how they're going to regulate marketing. And it's a hell of a lot less intrusive than the rules that we've got to deal with. So there's a counterfactual out there where we can presume the government's doing its best to regulate alcohol and make Canadians safer from its deadliness. Well, why can't we have kind of the same rule set?
Right.
Our product's a hell of a lot safer.
Yeah.
A hell of a lot safer. And I just think on a factual basis, it's a case that is absolutely winnable.
Yeah.
We just need to bring it. As an industry, we need to bring it. It's
How
going
do
to
we
cost
bring
some
it?
money. And I don't mean it's going to cost, hire Kirk Tousaw and pay me $1 million.
But you're my go-to man.
I like to get paid.
If I'm going anywhere, you're where I'm going.
I charge a good rate for stuff like this. But, so you got to hire experts. You got to bring in fact witnesses. You got to paper the record. That's a grind.
Yeah.
But it can be done.
It can be done.
Absolutely can be done. And we should be doing it.
The question is, there's a lot of questions when it comes to it. But I mean, so one, we'll look at what does it cause? Anyone that's in the industry, especially as an operator, they know the challenge, right? The government has basically created a B2B play here. Your customer ultimately has become your retailer or bud tender, right? Because you're not going to open lifestyle. Ooh, we can't do that. Inducement. No, we can't do that. So you've brought up a lot of great points. The question is, are we not doing anything? And I'm not an operator. I'm just here to support. That's what, right? I'm in it. I was a patient. I am a patient. I'm here to support. But are the LPs, the producers, the operators currently within the industry, and I'm talking everyone, are we complacent, or are we waiting because Health Canada keeps dangling this reform? Oh, reform's coming. We're tabling this, and especially when I want to get your take on CBD and wellness as well. And this whole, we need another consultation. If I hear anything else about another fucking consultation, I'm going to lose it. So is it a matter of we've become complacent? We're like, okay, this is the way it is. Or is it because Health Canada keeps saying, oh, well, there's reform. We're tabling some of these options. We're considering it. Are they just screwing with us? Which one is it? Or is there a different?
I mean, I think it's both of those things and some other factors. So complacency, I would say rather we're a little bit scared of the regulators still. I mean, as a reasonably new legal industry, your ticket to being able to operate is your license.
Yes.
And so, the government has a huge sword hanging over your head if you stray out of line. So no individual operator probably can sit there and say, well, it makes a lot of sense for me to go out there and put my neck on the chopping block to challenge these regulations. So what we need is industry groups to, frankly, I think all these industry groups that are collecting money from these LPs and spending it on lobbying would be much better served to hive off a piece of that and spend it on litigation. Yeah. Because in this area, litigation's been a hell of a lot more effective.
Seems like it.
And I can tell you 22 years now of this fight, for me, has amply demonstrated that to me.
Yeah.
So that's number one. I mean, I think number two is, the regulator has been smart about enforcement, right? And so you'll get a nasty gram from the government saying, stop doing this. If you don't stop doing it, you'll get another nasty gram. They'll slowly ramp up enforcement.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe at the end of it, they'll hit you with an administrative monetary penalty. But you can probably make most of that dollar amount go away by negotiating a settlement or resolution to it.
Okay.
So the stakes on the consequence side, at least direct consequences from the government for violations, put aside the consequences to the industry of just not, being able to spread your wings and flourish.
Yeah.
But the stakes are reasonably low. And so, if you're engaged in non-compliant marketing activity and the government sends you a nasty gram and you say, you know what, we're going to keep doing it. Right. And eventually they hit you with an administrative monetary penalty. Now, if that's $50,000 and you're a reasonably large company, you pay the $50K or you negotiate it down, you stop doing what you were doing and you move on. Cost of doing business. If they hit you with a $5 million penalty, well, now all of a sudden litigation becomes quite an attractive option to you. And so I don't think the government has yet crossed the threshold where they're bringing the hammer down so hard on companies that the budgetary consideration becomes, let's fight.
Okay.
Let's fight.
Got it.
You got a couple cases that are brewing that, have reasonably large AMPs where maybe there's some prospect of, hey, I'd rather pay my lawyer couple $100,000 than pay the government $1 million.
Yeah. Sorry, what's AMP?
Administrative monetary penalty.
Okay.
So that's the fine at the end of the.
Are there any cases though where, because I love that, we've seen, I can go off on brands. They did it. Is there any cases where they skip that initial slap on the wrist and they go straight to you? Like, is there a variance in you induced, you marketed, you created lifestyle behind this versus, minor to boom, you're getting a penalty? Or is it always going to be your non-compliant?
There's always a process.
There is.
And rightfully so. I mean, there's supposed to be a process.
Sure,
right?
sure. I just wasn't sure if there's a sliding scale. Yeah, I wasn't sure if there's maybe severe versus minor, right? Yeah. Oh, you've went right off the side. I mean, if you're handing out samples to kids, maybe. I don't know.
If you're handing out samples to kids, the cops are going to come arrest you.
Right.
So,
a little bit different.
And you're going to lose, by the way, your fight.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
so don't do that.
Don't do that. Brands, don't do that.
Don't do that.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. So that's
your free legal advice for the day.
Yeah. Don't do that. But I mean, geez, and you're right. Like the lobbying's not getting us anywhere in a lot of cases, right?
It gets you more consultations. It gets you FaceTime. Listen, the recent round of changes that are coming are welcome changes. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
A couple of them are, you kind of go, well, I don't know, expanding the micro cultivation footprint. That's great for new micro cultivators.
Yeah.
Maybe not so great for micro cultivators that have built small facilities and are operating them. And it's also great for standard cultivators who are now under the threshold and can, convert downwards and therefore see a decreased regulatory burden. But it's not substantive change in my opinion.
But are they actually coming?
Benefit the industry as a whole?
Like, are those happening for sure? Like this is because I don't think it's not a done deal yet, is it? I thought that was still
so we've gone through the consultation process. And now it's a matter of implementation. So is it a done deal? It's a done deal when it's done. Until then,
anything could change potentially. But it's funny because you talk about the micros.
Elections coming.
Well, and I want to ask about that too. So, but it's funny you're talking about what does it mean to a micro? Well, if you're already existing, it's reminiscent to me of the days of vaults. Right. Yeah. You've got these LPs setting up and it was like a, how big is your vault maneuver? It was this manual thing. Oh, look how big my vault is.
MTV Cribs for LPs.
MTV vaults.
Why are you building? I remember Aurora Sky's vault. It was so fucking big. And I'm like, you guys are using the corner. Like, what do you need this vault for? And it was almost like it was boastful, right? And then all of a sudden, we don't need vault.
That's what it was.
Secure storage is fine.
Yeah, it's I mean, for us, so in our individual circumstance, we have a sort of a converted chicken barn. Yeah, 1/3 of it's our micro. So does that change help us in the sense that we could convert the other 2/3 now and stay a micro? Sure. Mm-hmm. But the challenge for us is not we need more space to grow more weed. The challenge for us is we need to sell the weed that we're currently growing.
Right.
Which means we have to develop brand loyalty, which means we have to deal with the provinces, which means we have to be able to market, which brings us full circle to
exactly.
How do I connect with consumers to let them know who we are, that we love cannabis, that we're in this because we've loved cannabis our whole lives, Matt and I, that we, that we grow and make hash and rosin that we love to smoke ourselves.
Yeah.
How do I have that conversation on a broader basis with consumers as opposed to bud tenders or retail stores or the buyer for the province who is the gatekeeper to getting you into a whole bunch of stores.
Jeez.
It's not easy. It's not easy. The last thing I want to do is grow more weed right now. I want to sell the weed I have. And then maybe think about growing more.
Well, and you brought up a point again, coming from marketing, right? That is my background, and it's a matter of product understanding. So, what is your SKU spread? So, hey, they grow great flower. I love it. It's great. Oh shit, they do hash. I didn't know that. Well,
well, why didn't you know?
Why didn't I know? Well, I can't put anything on my package that would say, try our hash. Like you can't do any of this, right? Come to our website, just scan. Oh, wait, you can't do that either. You can't scan the QR. Oh, there's no QR codes. Oh, okay. So, right. And this is just this vicious cycle of monotony that they've created for us. And again, I think that it would make sense that everyone gets together and they figure this out. We'll have other conversations on this because I think, we can use our platform as well. Not that we're huge, but every single voice counts. And I think as it's echoing to the operators and they're going, yeah, fuck this. I'm sick of it. We've got someone that's going to potentially lead this charge. Yeah, we're going to have to all pitch in to do it. But at the end of the day, avoiding that $10, $20, $50,000 fine potentially or penalty, maybe it makes more sense to put our money here.
Well, and growing your business and really, the big piece of it in my mind is we know that there's a substitution effect already occurring from available data. So we know that people are drinking less, consuming more cannabis. We know that there's this shift to a healthier product. But we're not competing on a level playing field with the alcohol industry.
Right.
They have all the advantages. And we have none. In fact, we have disadvantages.
I was going to say.
and our market share, I think if we look back since 2018, things have kind of gone the way we expected them to go. There was a slow ramp up period. There's growth in the industry. There's growth in the market. There's a lot of turbulence. Those are all sort of normal things. But if we could actually compete on a promotional and marketing level playing field with alcohol, the size of our industry can grow exponentially. And that puts dollars in everybody's pockets, right? The small operators, the big operators, everybody that works in the industry. It's a win-win-win situation. And it's a win for consumers because they get to learn about safer alternatives for enjoyable recreation, to have a throwback to the safer guys in the United States from 15 years ago.
There you go.
That's the end game, I think, is to say, look, we are a product that people consume to have a good time. That, putting aside the medical.
For sure.
We're speaking recreationally here.
Yep.
Alcohol is a product that people consume to have a good time. Ours is safer. Ours produces much better outcomes. Ours doesn't lead to a whole bunch of negative outcomes like theirs does. I got no beef with people that drink. I enjoy a beer every now and then as well. I enjoy a nice bottle of wine in particular every now and then. But we need to be hiving off their market share and growing our industry as a result. And the promotional and marketing restrictions are killing us.
Yeah, agreed. Do you feel we know where it could go if those laws or regulations were to loosen? Are we where we are now so think back 2010, 12, as this was coming up, are we where you expected we would be? Or I mean,
if you want to go back to 2010, Stephen Harper was the prime minister, and he was talking about throwing people in jail for growing 6 plants, and the scourge of marijuana, and Toaster Bud was in office, and the whole, all of the hysteria and the nonsense and the green teams and the heavy enforcement and the civil forfeitures and all that bullshit. So, if you'd asked me in 2012 if I thought cannabis would be legalized in the next 6 years, I'd have laughed at you.
Yeah.
Absolutely not would have been my answer.
Right.
Now, when Trudeau makes his promise in 2015, as he's, beginning that massive red wave that swept politics in 2015, against the wishes of his own caucus, by the way, there's one person most responsible for legalizing cannabis in this country, and it's Justin Trudeau.
Yeah.
He gets a lot of hate today.
Of
but
course.
He went against the wishes of his own caucus, his own people, to implement this policy. And it's the most successful and popular policy that's probably ever been implemented.
Isn't it crazy?
Certainly by the current Liberal government.
Yeah.
Although, dental care is a pretty big one too. So,
yeah.
Then I would have said, okay, government's probably going to start super restrictive. They didn't make any bones about that. They said it's easier to start restrictive and loosen up than to start loose and tighten up.
Which does make sense.
About that.
Of course.
They are right about that.
It's harder to draw back. That's for sure.
It is. Now, it's not impossible to draw back.
No.
I seriously, and I'm seriously concerned that if the Conservatives take office next year or sooner, that you are going to see a drawback. You are going to see more restrictions. You are going to see a return to some of the darker days on a lot of issues, but certainly on the cannabis policy file. But if you said to me in 2018, what's it going to look like in 2024? I feel like this is probably about what I would have said. There's going to be a lot of churn in the market. The greatest thing about this whole change is that people don't really get arrested for simple possession anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, we went from, at one point 50 to 60,000 arrests for simple possession each year to less than 1,000 today.
Wow.
That's a huge change. I mean, ultimately legalization was about, getting people to not be arrested anymore.
Right.
The industry piece is a nice piece and it's a fun piece and it's a necessary piece, but that wasn't the goal of cannabis activists. It was medical access, stop arresting people for having cannabis.
Yeah.
Those were the goals. Medical access, as I said earlier, really the forgotten piece of this puzzle, needs a hell of a lot more emphasis and understanding. We got to leave clubs like Ted's that are still doing good work in local communities absolutely alone. We need to expand access on the medical front. We need to stop excise taxing medical products.
Yes.
Disgusting that we continue to do that. We need to subsidize it.
Yeah.
But on the recreational side, we don't arrest people much anymore.
Yeah.
And you can buy, cannabis in stores all over the country.
Yeah.
And the quality's gotten better.
Yeah.
That's the other piece of it is, we started out with a bunch of
There's a bunch of crap.
Anyway, there's still a bunch of crap out there, but that's no different from any other.
I was going to say, it's funny because I've got so many operator friends in the black market still, and they'll say, "Oh yeah, but the legal weed is garbage." I go, "You think every one of your fucking crops are good? Like I've grown shitty cannabis and I've consumed shitty cannabis. It's the same on both sides. Like, come on, guys, we know this."
Listen, I grew up in Michigan smoking Mexican brick.
There you go.
So,
although Michigan has some incredible fucking
it's fire now.
Like, come
on.
No,
it is fire. I was just there for my fantasy football draft because I went to Michigan State. We've been in a league for 26 years, me and my college buddies. And, go to the store. Not only is the weed absolute fire, but their pricing, first U.S. jurisdiction I've been in where their pricing is lower than Canada.
Wow.
I mean, I was buying eighths of banging weed for $12.50.
What?
Just unbelievable.
But hold on, how is that happening because didn't they just go through a super dry spell?
I don't know. But when I left that store, I had a half ounce of weed and a couple of 1 gram pre-rolls. I spent $80.
What?
And I went in, I don't go in and say, give me the value. I go in and say, give me the best possible cannabis you have. I grow it. I've been smoking it for 35 years.
Yeah.
You're relying on the bud tender, but most of the time they kind of know what's good. What would you buy?
Yeah.
And it was fire. Every eighth was fire. So,
wow.
I can't complain a bit about that. A year ago, I was in Colorado for the Dead Company shows. And I mean, I spent many hundreds of dollars on cannabis for the course of 5 days.
Yeah.
So Michigan was fantastic.
Well, a long way from Mexican brickweed then. That's
long way from Mexican brick. But the quality is great. Like we just did we're part of the Grow Up Canadian Cannabis Championship.
Yep.
And so our crew here essentially cuts down all the entries. I think there was 33 flower entries this year to the top 12, right?
Wow, yeah.
And so just last week, we had a big sesh around the conference table. We put out the 33 entries. We judged them all, smoked them all. Remo came over.
Nice.
We had some other friends in, and there were, of the 33, there were 6 samples that every single one of us unanimously put in the top 12.
Wow.
Pretty good selection.
Jeez.
There was another 4 that 5 of the 6 of us would have put through. And then the last 2 or 3, 4 of the 6 of us would have put through.
Jeez.
So was there some mediocre weed? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Was there some bad weed? 1. But was there, by and large, a lot of good quality cannabis that got smoked that day? Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I could not have said that 5 years ago. I mean, 5 years ago, it would have been, I just would have, it's the poison.
I remember when a lot of it was coming out, and I'm like, good God, like, until like there was the odd outlier, but the vast majority in those days, like they just weren't drawing on the roots, man. It just wasn't good. No. The processes, the setups, they weren't dialing nutrients in. Like everything was all messed up. But we've gotten to a really good point.
Got old.
Yeah, for sure.
And there's still old weed out there. You get to learn that tang smell and that cedrine sort of terpene smell, and you can taste it. It. You're like, oh, that's old.
You can tell. Well, and Wes and I just talked. Our pre-banner in the early segment was around repackaging. Right. And the fact that harvest dates don't need to be on a bag. Packaging dates do. And our first experience was like 2017 when we had clients putting in data requests to change their packaged on dates. And we're like, what the fuck are they doing this for? And then it dawned on me. I'm like, oh, they're repackaging it. They're putting it back into a bulk lot and repackaging to get a new packaged on date. So very deceiving. But if you have ever consumed cannabis, that you will probably not return to that. So they're only digging their own grave.
100%, right? 100%. There's a few brands that we tried that I was like, well, that's bad.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm not, because I'm, it's not like it's confidential, but I'm not going to go out there and slam.
Of course.
Yeah. That's like, why do that?
Yeah.
I mean, it's, talk about the good. There's bad out there, but I don't need to
focus on the good. Just focus on the good. That's what. And the same way.
And there was fire.
Nice.
I love absolutely stunning cannabis. And I grow cannabis. I've been growing cannabis as a medical patient since 2012 or so, something like that. 2011. Grown cannabis on and off kind of my whole life.
Yeah.
I have. I could take you on a tour of our humidor where we just have plants hanging and we go in and pick it off the stalk and keep it temperature and humidity controlled. And that's sort of, I don't need to buy weed.
Right. Yeah.
But
exactly.
there was weed there that I will go and buy because I loved it.
Yeah.
I loved it.
Well, I can't wait to see the results get published because that's going to be awesome. I want to ask a little bit before we wrap up, Kirk, we've been hot on the CBD and the wellness categories lately. Right. And I mean, there's just so many really good companies. Some produce THC products as well, but some of them are hyper-focused in CBD. What's going on? Like, what is taking the government so long to even consider it? Like, to consider
fix it for us, Kirk. Fix it for us.
Yeah, right. You know what? I don't know. CBD as a molecule, unbelievably safe.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like to say it has no psychoactive effect because I don't think that's scientifically accurate.
Yeah.
It's an anti-anxiety molecule. It's an anti-anxiety cannabinoid. That's psychoactive. It doesn't get you high, but it is active.
It has to be. Yeah.
It does
into
something.
A receptor. It's got to be doing something. Yeah.
So, but it's absolutely something that, essentially shouldn't be regulated. It should be a natural health product at absolute worst.
Mm-hmm.
And we can look down in the States where, CBD has been sold basically in convenience stores for at least the last 5 to 10 years.
Yeah.
There's been no negative health outcomes as a result of that widespread access.
Mm-hmm.
What are we waiting for?
Yeah.
There's a time and a place for the precautionary principle. And that's at the beginning of learning about something.
Yeah.
It's not today in 2024
so
when we know a lot about CBD and we know it's incredibly safe. And we also know that a lot of people benefit from it, just from health and wellness.
Yeah.
Let's just get it onto the shelves of regular stores where it belongs and take it out of like weed shops.
Yeah.
It just does not make sense.
Do you think the big pharma is stopping it? If you even want to weigh in on that? I mean, they're two completely different things. And this is what I'm not sure of, but people may be more hesitant to take that prescription and err over here to the side of caution with CBD. I don't know. It just doesn't, when it doesn't add up, you look for some sort of sense in it. And I can't see anything other than, is it being blocked by big pharma? Are they, filling the coffers? What are they doing? Like, what is going on? And I don't know, man. I'm at a loss.
I hesitate to sort of blame an industry that I don't know if they're involved or not.
Yeah.
Like there's probably data in the US about whether or not, prescription drugs for like anxiety and depression have declined since the widespread availability of CBD has come into play. My guess is the answer to that is no. My guess is that if anything, because we live in a more anxious time and we live in a time with increasing stresses and pressures, those types of prescriptions are actually probably on the rise. So I don't necessarily want to say lobbying by big pharma is keeping CBD out of, the convenience store.
Yeah.
I think that the easier answer is that government moves slowly if they move at all, that good regulatory choices are often superseded by political considerations, and that, the federal government currently has kind of a tight rein on stuff. The minute they let it go, right, if CBD is not regulated under the Cannabis Act, which is, let's remind everybody, criminal legislation. It's rooted in the criminal law. That's why the federal government gets to have jurisdiction over cannabis. And it doesn't necessarily have jurisdiction over alcohol, for example, because it's rooted in the criminal law power. I think wrongly. But that's where we're at. The minute CBD is not regulated using the criminal law power, does the federal government have a role to play anymore other than in the, cross-provincial trade or something along those lines? And I think the answer is probably not.
Right.
So it's tough to let go of control over something that you currently control.
Yeah. Okay.
That to me is probably more the reason than lobbying by big pharma.
Yeah.
But
it just makes you wonder the nefarious side of things. We like to go there once in a while and go, hey, what's really going on, right? But at the same time, we saw how long certain things took just getting to where we are, and hopefully we can make some change sooner than later. I don't want to.
You can certainly do an Access to Information Act request to the federal government, to Health Canada, and ask for anything they've ever been given in the last 3 years on CBD by any representative of any pharmaceutical company.
On it.
See what comes back.
Wes, on it.
On it.
Well,
and if I'm wrong, by the way, please tell me, because then I'll go and advocate to get these guys out of our basic healthcare.
Wes,
decisions.
mark that spot.
Got
it. So
10209 in the recording.
Yeah. So we've got, I want to talk about Great Gardener for a quick second before we ask you a wrap-up question. Tell us about Great Gardener. I mean, was it only obvious? Look, you've done all this advocacy work. Here it is. I've been sampling. I've been doing a little growing, dabbling. Did it make, where did this come from? When you knew you knew there's challenges in this industry. Was it a passion project? Was it, where did it come from? Because, the brand is great, obviously, and the product, from what I understand, although I haven't tried it yet, is incredible. But
it's nice.
Yeah. So
nice. We like it.
Where did Great Gardener come from?
Well, so Matt Barron, my business partner, and I met when I was brought on by John Conroy to defend him for growing for the Vancouver Island Compassion Society. And we became good friends in the back room of the VIX.
Yeah.
I mean, we were the two guys that just kept smoking.
Yeah.
So we're both longtime heads. Matt's been growing a plant or many plants continuously for more than 30 years, cycle after cycle, never taken a break, never stopped growing. So he's a true grower. We became good friends. We started going to some international competitions. He got invited to enter the High Times Cannabis Cup.
Oh, cool.
By the High Times crew back in I think 2009, 2010. Ended up placing with some hash that he made from Hayoma and Warlock mixed together. The hash maker for the club made it, not Matt, but Matt had grown and developed the strain. Started breeding through a seed company, international seed company based out of the UK and Spain together, called House of the Great Gardener.
Okay.
And Matt's been, in the Compassion Club legacy industry, the whole time. Legalization's sort of on the horizon, and I'm actually joking around with another buddy of mine named Adam Greenblatt, who's a longtime cannabis activist.
Okay.
Worked in Montreal for many years, and he was working with Canopy at the time. And Canopy Growth Corporation had put out this craft market idea, or some idea that they were going to feature small growers, for their medical access platform at the time. And I sent him I think it was a direct message on Twitter. Hey, that's a great idea. And he writes me back right away and says, I can't tell if you're sarcastic or not, because, Canopy's everybody's favorite, punching bag.
Yeah, for sure.
Even more so at the time, for some good reasons, but for some specious reasons as well. And I'm like, no, I'm serious, man. Like, I think that's a super neat and cool idea. And he says, well, would you and Matt ever be interested in having a conversation? I looked at Matt and I was like, well, sure. Yeah, let's have a conversation. And so we ended up doing a consulting and distribution deal with Canopy. We formed Great Gardener Farms in 2020 to do that deal. We formed Great Gardener Farms in 2017 to do that deal when legalization dropped.
Okay.
And so the idea was we were going to, consult with them on the grow and just understanding the market end of things. And they were going to launch the brand. They were growing our genetics in their greenhouses in British Columbia. We know how that turned out. Those greenhouses are no longer operational. I don't think Canopy did very well on those transactions. And ultimately they ended up declining to actually launch the brand.
Right.
So, Matt and I sort of got a whole bunch of gear in the divorce, like lighters and ashtrays and this set that we're in. And, we had accumulated a few trophies over the years. This is about a third of them that we've won over the last 15 years or so around the world. I think we've got 90 plus trophies on 4 continents since we started doing this stuff. And we thought, you know what? We believe in cannabis. We believe in ourselves. Let's launch on our own. And so we converted a third of our barn here to a microcultivation facility. Applied for microcultivation license in January 2021. Got licensed in May of 2021. Wow. It was a much easier process than I had anticipated going in. And that's when we launched the brand. Initially, we started with just flower. We've since gotten our micro processing license. I'm a QAP. Matt's a QAP. We didn't necessarily think that would happen either, but you fill out the paperwork and you see what happens. And so we've done a couple deals with a local farm here to grow our genetics outdoors. We're in development of genetics that finish here in British Columbia the first week of September. Predominantly our Barbara Bud, which is responsible for about a third of our awards. And you can find Barbara Bud hash all over Spain and up Amsterdam and all over Europe. And it's grown by the hundreds of acres in Morocco because it's just a fantastic hash making strain. Wow. And so we have done a couple deals with hash makers and we've got some ice water hash in market. We've got some live rosin vapes in market. We're about to launch a couple new live rosin products through Antidote, our new processor up in the interior. Great folks. Great crew. Jay made all our hash from our harvest last year, made some French fire barb and barb hash. It's super melty. It's like 68% THC, super melty ice water hash. Jeez. You can buy it in BC today in a 1.5 gram SKU. We've got some infused pre-rolls that have done pretty well here in BC. We're about to launch some more infused pre-rolls with some indoor flower and some hash and keef. And then we're going to put out some statically cleaned keef. You can take keef, you make that by tumbling flour through a screen.
Mm-hmm.
You can get different grades of keef depending on how long you tumble it for. But you can also clean that using static electricity. It's a labor-intensive process, really pioneered by Sam the Skunk Man.
Okay.
Nice. and popularized by Bubble Man.
Yeah.
But you clean up your sift until it's essentially pure heads.
Okay.
Somewhere in the 95 to 99% pure head category. So what you end up with is actually dabbable, super melty dry sift.
Wow.
So we can't wait to put that out in market. It'll be super limited drops because it's hard to make.
Well,
right?
I was going to say, holy smokes.
Take a big pile of keef like this and you end up with 100 grams of ultra pure, but it's, it's a product that very few people have ever had the opportunity to try, much less, purchase in the store. So
Wild.
We're stoked about that. And, we're good friends, good buddies. We love weed. I mean, at the end of the day, right. We did it because we love cannabis. We want to share that love with other people.
Yeah.
Sure. The industry's a tough slog. It's not profitable. We don't pay ourselves anything. It's really a labor of love right now. But the other side of it is, look, we don't have investors.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have people we're beholden to. We don't have debt.
Yeah.
If we shut the business down today, we wouldn't owe Canada Revenue Agency a penny. We wouldn't owe anyone a penny.
Wow.
Because we believe in sort of doing things the right way and making sure that we're not leveraging other people's money in an uncertain environment. So it's been a fun and massively learning experience. Entrepreneurism is totally different from practicing law, even though I've worked for myself as a lawyer.
Yeah, I was going to say,
I've essentially worked for myself my whole life.
Yeah,
but there's a difference between having to sell your weed for a few bucks a gram if you're lucky, and charge it $400 an hour for your legal service.
Yeah, dropping packs in the black market were much different and far more profitable than the current regulation.
Also more fun. Outside of we always have to say, right?
Every time a car door slammed, I always joke, and anyone that grew or moved product knew the exact same thing. It's nighttime, you hear a car door slam, I'm peeking out the curtains. Who is it? Where is it?
You get pulled over and you're like, I don't think I was speeding. Oh my God.
Going to the States. Oh my God. Okay. We got to completely detail the car. I don't know what's going on in here. There's probably hash somewhere.
I mean, I could tell you, even as a guy who, I'm a lawyer, I'm a white guy. I know how to speak the language of the police. I know how to act in certain situations. I don't get stressed out. Up until the day I got my medical card that allowed me to legally possess cannabis.
Yeah.
I was as paranoid as anybody else about, and I always had cannabis with me. I smoke all day, every day, and I always have since I was 15. So I always have weed. And I was a criminal every single day of that. I was a criminal. And that takes a toll on you psychologically that I'm glad is gone now.
Yeah.
But, I had a cigarette pack of joints and I drove to the post office to pick up package, and it was my license, my first license, MMAR license.
Okay.
And I was a criminal on the way to the post office and not a criminal on the way home because of that piece of paper, right? And it felt different.
It so different. I'm staring at my filing cabinet where I know mine is. I still have my pink paper in there.
Yeah, me too.
And I'm looking at, and I never transitioned, but I remember being in the airport with a whole bunch of weed on me, going, just stop me. Go ahead. I'm just going to pull this out. I'm flying to BC. I can take this. I'm allowed.
I got my 30-day supply.
Yeah, exactly. There's nothing you can do about this, but oh my God, Kirk, we could go on for hours, my friend. There's a lot that we can cover, but we'll certainly repeat. Now, what we've been doing is we pose a question to you from last week's guest. I think you may have seen it. And then you get to pose a question to next week's guest coming in.
I forgot about this segment of the show.
I don't know where we
should have
stole
prepared.
it. I don't know where we stole it.
I did not see the question.
Actually,
So this is cold.
I went back, to some of the Diary of a CEO podcast, and I think that's where I may have hijacked this from.
Wow.
I think he's doing it because I caught one with Dr. Tara Swart. Anyways, Wes,
it's a great idea.
Yeah. Wes, what is it?
Yeah. So last week we had Shane Morris on, Dr. Shane Morris, and his question last week was, where is a place you'd like to get high that you have yet to do so? So it doesn't have to be like a country or anything specifically, just a specific place that you have yet to get high that you think would be a great experience. Wow,
that's a phenomenal question. I mean, for me, it's going to be, man, there's so many. There's so many.
Only one.
Yeah, like one.
And some of our guests, it might be, where have you not gotten high?
What about in the courtroom the next time you litigate?
I mean, what was the second part of that question?
Yeah.
Where I haven't? All right, so not the courtroom. What popped into my mind first was the Great Pyramids.
Oh wow!
In Egypt, lot of history there. Obviously, that's kind of a silly statement, but I mean, also some interesting stuff's gone down there from my sort of musical passions. Pink Floyd's played in there. The Dead have played there. I think it'd be great to sort of just watch the sun either come up or go down, puff on a nice doob, and just sort of contemplate the ancients' civilization. So we're going to throw that out there for now.
That'd be wild.
Perfect. That'd be amazing.
I'm just thinking through that. Why? That's Luxor, right? The pyramids in Luxor, or is that where the Sphinx is?
I think the Sphinx there.
Okay. Yeah. But regardless, Floyd.
Anyway,
that'd be wild.
Wherever they are, that's where
where you're going to be. Yeah, exactly.
That's where I'm going to be. Yeah. One day,
contemplating life. Man, it'd be wild.
Now the harder part is I need a question for the next guest.
That's correct. Right. Yes, they may or may not be. Well, we can't tell you that.
I don't even know, and sometimes I don't even know who it is.
I know who it is, and we'll just say we're pivoting a little bit, not necessarily. I'll just say we're pivoting a bit. Yeah.
Okay.
Now I'm wondering.
All right. So I guess here's my question then. If you had to pick a sort of Mount Rushmore of cannabis, who would be on it? Give me the. Is there five old white dudes on Mount Rushmore?
I think there's four.
Four. All right, well, we'll go with four. Then.
There's so many memes that go around. I mean, I think there's 8. I don't.
Yeah, right. Give me the 4 people who you would put on your Mount Rushmore of cannabis.
Okay, and that can be anyone from the world, or does it have to be
anyone from the world?
Okay,
anyone from the world.
Wow.
So, got one. I mean, and let's hope it's not necessarily Tommy Chong, Bob Marley, and
it's definitely Bruce Lee. That's going on there.
Yeah.
That's funny. All right. Well, Kirk, great success to Great Gardener.
Thank you.
We know that you'll continue with that. I want to fly to BC just when the static hash drops.
You got it. Well, the rosin at least is on Mendo, and Herbal Dispatch.
Okay.
We're hoping to get the hash and the new rosin and the static clean out there just as quick as we can too. So
very cool.
Look for it there.
Wow.
But absolutely would love to have you out if you wanted to come out. You can we'll host you in our podcasting studio here in the Great Gardener Farms offices.
I love it.
And do some fun stuff.
Yeah, for sure, man. Well, thank you for joining Legacies. It's been a blast, and we thank you for all the work that you've done helping us to get to where we are. The job's not done yet, though. The job's not done. We still got a mile to travel. Anyways, thanks for joining Legacies, buddy. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Breadstack e-commerce. It might be time to upgrade.
Well, Wes, a doctor and a lawyer in one episode.
Legendary episode. Jam-packed.
Fucking these guys talk about like two very, I don't even know what to say. I'm so lost. I mean, hours of podcasting will do that and melt my brain. But, between Dr. Ira Price and Kirk and what they've done for this industry combined,
Oh, yeah.
we got them on one episode. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was a
Incredible.
great episode, though, I think. I mean, it's not post-produced yet and out there, but hopefully you enjoy it. But we do have one other thing. So you remember that JF, our buddy JF, had the first cannabis event in Cornwall, and we were giving away an Ono tea, and we said we're going to announce it today.
Correct.
Flip vote. So
Yeah.
the winner.
The winner is It's a Beautiful Life.
It's a Beautiful Life
on Instagram.
All right.
So I'm going to reach out via DMs via the Legacy channel. We'll get your size and stuff like that, and just get that stuff back to us along with your shipping address, and we'll get that beautiful Ono tea shipped out to you.
They're nice.
And also, and obviously, congratulations to JF again. I heard the event was extremely successful, so I'm glad he was able to turn that around. So.
Right on. Well, it's been another incredible episode. We hope you like it, and we'll see you next time on Legacies.